Alright, so it looks like we got it working again.
Makoto continues to find
I don't know
escape,
what happened.
finally landing in a wasteland with no sign of life. He keeps walking for 3 days, but finds nothing, which makes him feel lonely and depressed. But suddenly, he hears the distant voice of a girl asking for help. He rushes toward the direction of the sound and finds a pig-like creature. The girl is being attacked by a two-headed monster, so he decides to save her. Makoto dashes at full speed and jumps on the creature with immense power, which surprisingly beheads it, and Makoto is shocked to see his own strength. The girl is terrified by the sight and tries to escape, but Makoto stops her and introduces himself. She is shocked that a human can understand her language, and Makoto is even more shocked that he's talking to a pig right now, but he tries to convince her that he's a nice guy. The
My
girl
screen capture
introduces
ain't
herself as
working.
Emma and mentions she was headed to the
Man,
Divine
nothing my
Mountain to
stuff
offer
saves,
herself as a
man.
sacrifice to the deity named Shin. Her village has been covered in a fog for a long time now, and it ruins their crop harvest, but whenever they offer someone to Shin, the fog is lifted. Before she goes through with the offering, Emma brings Makoto back to her house to thank him for saving her, and while having dinner with her brothers, Makoto soon realizes that magic is a basic skill for the people of this world, so he asks Emma to teach him. Emma starts by teaching some fire magic, which is supposed to be tricky, but Makoto learns it in one go, surprising everyone. They suspect Makoto to be at a high level, but when they check, he's only at level 1, so Emma continues to teach him. The next day, Makoto heads out to see if
Okay,
he
so
can
my
do
screen
something,
capture is
so
not
Emma won't need
working.
to sacrifice herself to Shin. Since he was in the school archery club, Makoto transforms fire into a bow and arrow. He shoots the arrow towards the entrance to the mountain, which surprisingly destroys the gate, leaving several men wounded, and we learn that these men were using Shin's name to
There
scare
we
the
go.
orcs. But since Makoto has attacked Shin's home, it triggers the creature to appear. A red fog covers everything, and a huge dragon emerges, attacking Makoto. But he dodges all of the dragon's attacks, even though the mist is blocking his vision. Makoto uses a new skill that lets him sense the dragon, so he dodges everything before launching his counterattack. He surrounds the dragon with fireballs and blasts her repeatedly, which shocks the creature, wondering how he has so much power. Makoto punches the
It's
dragon,
Noel.
knocking it down, but when Makoto
Hmm.
lowers his guard, the dragon
I
attacks
love you
using its
too,
magical
sweetheart.
eyes to trap him in an illusion. We see Makoto at the archery
But you gotta
club
get down right now.
talking
I
to his
gotta work.
tutor Yumi, who he has a crush on. She confesses her love to him and asks him for a date, but Makoto doesn't believe it since he isn't good looking. He realizes it's just an illusion and uses his power to dispel it. He understands the power Tsukuyomi gave him, and it allows him to manipulate his surroundings at will. He used it earlier to sense Shin through the fog, and now strengthens his fists with it to break through the illusion. He prepares to confront the dragon, but she no longer sees him as an enemy. She's impressed by his immense powers and his memories from the other world. She tells him she's seen his memories and wants to learn more about his world, so she offers him a contract to become his companion, which would benefit them both. Makoto is hesitant at first, but ends up agreeing, and the dragon begins the ritual. Strange magic surrounds them, and the dragon tries to form a balanced contract. But Makoto's power overwhelms her, so he ends up becoming her master, and she's transformed into a human. After a contract is formed, the weaker being takes the form of the stronger one, which is why she became a human, but her appearance isn't the only thing that changed, as she shows Makoto the demi-plane she has control over. It can be accessed through mist gates that she can open, but as they enter the plane, they find a lush and fertile field, which Shin is shocked to see. The plane used to just be a dark and empty abyss, but Makoto's influence must have changed it, even having fruits that he recognizes from Earth. To be sure of the scale of this
Alright.
place, Makoto uses his new Kai ability to scan the demi-plane, realizing that the place is absolutely huge, but gets cut off at the end of the mist wall.
What?
If the demi-plane is a place where Shin has complete control, Makoto thinks that it probably means the goddess can't interfere with his life there, so he thinks about
What
building a city
happened?
inside. As he thinks about settlements, Makoto remembers that the reason he came to the mountain in the first place was to deal with Shin taking orcs as sacrifices, but in reality, she had nothing to do with that. Since it was all just a misunderstanding,
Oh,
Makoto
snap.
wants to head back to explain things, so as they exit,
Okay.
they run into Emma, who came to convince him not to fight Shin. But she's shocked when she learns that the girl standing behind him is the Great Dragon. A party is held in celebration of Makoto's victory, which revealed the truth behind the sacrifices, and Emma thanks him from the bottom
What's
of
up,
her heart
Maple?
for saving their village.
Yeah, man, back at it, back at it.
In some way, so Shin makes a suggestion that the orcs move into her demiplane, and by the next day, all the orcs have packed up their stuff ready to move. Makoto is hesitant to just
Fighting through this sinus pain and junk, but yeah, I'm at it.
repay him for the kindness he has shown them by swearing their undying loyalty to him, and Shin has already made sure the plan is completely safe.
It's been a decent day.
In the event something dangerous were to happen, Shin reveals a mini version of herself, who will be there to take care of them. So Makoto agrees to let them move in, and construction on the new town begins. While the orcs are busy with that, Makoto spends his time practicing his magic.
Alright,
while
so
Shin
that's
has
my
memories
base.
of historical dramas, but he starts
How
getting
bright do I
annoyed
want
by her
this
constantly
guy?
digging through his memories.
Right
Shin
there should
admits that
work.
it's inconvenient for him to have to sit still while she watches his memories, so she says she will figure out a way to build a television to play them instead. While she's gone, Makoto sees some of the memories Shin left open and starts to miss his family, but since his parents were apparently originally from this world, he thinks he might be able to find some information about what their life was like in this world. Meanwhile, in a nearby forest, a dwarf is running for his life as he's chased down by a giant spider monster. Makoto walks around the demiplane.
How's your
and
day
runs
been?
into some of the orcs who seem to be having trouble with a huge tree. They want to cut it down so they can build Makoto a house befitting the lord of the land, but it is too hard for them to cut through with their axes. Makoto is happy to lend a hand and uses his kai to strengthen himself, allowing him to cut through the tree and pick it up with ease. He's also able
Shoot,
to
I might take a break.
without
I'm actually doubling it up today. I'm gonna do this and some beauty work later.
for granting him such a powerful skill. Unfortunately, it doesn't look like he can
With a
do it
food
alone.
break in
He
between.
thinks it won't be an issue as long as he doesn't get hurt. Moments later, Shin returns to the demiplane with the dwarf after finding him wounded in the forest. She ran into an old enemy of hers while she was out, and after smelling the blood from Makoto's injured hand, it breaks its way into the demiplane to attack. But Shin decides to stay out of it and let Makoto handle it instead. It's a spider monster plagued with the curse of unending hunger, so it will eat literally anything it can get its legs on. Since it's a spider, Makoto starts his attack with the fire element to sever one of its legs, but its regeneration is powerful enough that it recovers almost instantly and continues attacking. Makoto is able to damage it, but if it keeps healing itself, he thinks the fight will never end. He continues launching fire spears, but he ends up getting caught off guard and stabbed through the gut by the spider's leg, but it just makes him angrier. He unleashes his full power and begins firing repeated fire blasts with no delay in between, following it up with an insanely destructive water arrow. After his display of power, he passes out from exhaustion, but the spider is still able to regenerate and it grabs him once more. However, it seems to have taken a liking to him after he gave her such a fulfilling battle, and Shin suggests that she become one of Makoto's servants as well by forming a contract with him, so by the time Makoto wakes up, there's another girl by his side. Makoto wonders who she is, so she explains that she's the spider that he just fought with. She now assumes a human form because of the contract established with Makoto while he was unconscious. Makoto is shocked by this because he didn't think it was possible to form a contract without the consent of both parties. Shin walks in, and Makoto immediately confronts her on forming a contract for him without his consent, but she replies saying that it was better than a giant spider following him the entire time. The dwarf they saved introduces himself as Biren. He thanks Makoto for driving away the spider that has terrorized his village for such a long time, and he also requests that he and his people permanently live in Shin's demiplane. Makoto almost immediately agrees to this, but Shin steps in and states that Biren and his people can move in, but in return, they would have to satisfy a few conditions of theirs, like providing them with weapons, and also acknowledging Makoto as the lord of the land. Biren isn't sure, but she gives him 2 of her dragon scales to help convince his people. The next day, Makoto walks around, trying to trace his parents' path and find human settlements, but Shin then appears and informs him that there is a serious matter which requires his immediate attention. He's back at the hut, where Shin states that she and the Spider Girl need new names because the citizens of the demiplane didn't know what to call them. Makoto gets upset because he was called back for something so trivial, but Shin and the Spider Girl still insist on the new names, so Makoto gives Shin the name Tomo. which was the name of the strongest female samurai, and the Spider Girl is given the name Mio. The next day, a gathering of all citizens of the Demiplane has been arranged, and Makoto is surprised at all the new species which have populated the area. Tomo and Mio introduce themselves with their new names, and also mentions that Makoto should be addressed as either their master or lord. Makoto thinks it's ridiculous, but Tomo and Mio insist, so he ends up settling on being called the young master. Biren introduces Makoto to his village chief named Eld, but he mentions how Makoto has the looks far from that of a typical human. He then asks him if he was given a mission by the goddess, but Makoto is offended by this question, and states that he would never accept a mission from her, especially after she roasted him and dropped him on the edge of the world. Eld is relieved to hear this, because the opinions of his people often differ from that of the goddess. Tomo steps in and introduces a species known as the Mist Lizards, who are her loyal followers equipped with both air and water attributes. Mio then introduces her own loyal followers to Makoto, known as the Alki, whose long-term hunger has now been satisfied ever since they received some of Makoto's blood and mana. Makoto gives a brief speech to the citizens and immediately heads out in search of the village he had spotted earlier. He walks for a while and observes a human girl, but she's immediately frightened and runs away the moment she sees him. He continues towards the village, wondering why she ran away, and he's greeted by a horde of villagers, who all point their weapons at him. The people of the village speak in a language which Makoto doesn't understand, and they start to attack him, so he gets driven away. He then realizes that he couldn't understand the language because the goddess gave him the ability to speak every language besides human. Makoto goes back to the hut, upset that he couldn't understand the other humans. He reasons that people wouldn't just go around attacking others just because they can't communicate, so he assumes that he was attacked because he's ugly. But Tomo tells him it's actually because of the large amount of mana he exudes, mentioning that they would have seen him as several demon kings. Emma mentions that an easy fix for this is for Makoto to suppress his mana by imagining a lid on it, so he tries doing this, but there is only a slight decrease in mana. Makoto refuses to give up, so he vows to learn the common speech, and also figure out how to suppress his mana. A magic expert named Rugu brings him a ring that can suppress his mana, but when he puts it on, it's immediately overloaded and destroyed. Makoto practices his common speech with Mio, but doesn't seem to be getting the hang of it, but he realizes that he can use his magic to write out a translation of whatever he thinks into common speech. Rugu arrives with a new magic ring, and it successfully absorbs Makoto's mana this time, but Rugu warns him that the ring changes colors from white to red when it reaches its capacity. Makoto returns to the village in a carriage, while also dressed in a cloak and mask, with the alias of being a wealthy merchant's son, and he's able to get through. He notices that everyone in the village is good looking, which makes him upset, since he's the only ugly person. They arrive at the Adventurers Guild, where they are greeted by the receptionist, but she finds Makoto's appearance suspicious, so Mio and Tomo state that he's being forced to wear that mask, and also can't speak because of a curse. The receptionist explains that each adventurer starts at rank E, and they can rank up by completing quests. Mio and Tomo are given measuring scrolls to determine their level, and everyone is shocked to see that Tomo is level 1320, while Mio is level 1500. But Tomo is upset that Mio is higher level than her, and she demands that they are reevaluated. Meanwhile, Makoto's level is evaluated, and he's embarrassed to see that he's still at level 1. They ask for a room for the night, so the innkeeper tells them it will cost 6 gold coins. They find the price absurd, so after a little intimidation from Tomo, the receptionist agrees to only charge them 2 gold. Later that night, Makoto and Mio take a walk through the village, when they suddenly bump into a girl who appears to be in distress. Makoto thinks it's suspicious that she's alone at such a late hour, so he tells Mio to handle it, but Mio suddenly scolds her, telling her to get out of their way. Makoto smacks her and reprimands her for being so harsh, and he asks the girl what she's doing all alone. The girl bursts into tears and embraces Makoto, while mentioning that she needs help, so Makoto decides to take her back to the inn, but we see a man watching them. The girl introduces herself as Rin, and mentions how her sister Toa has been missing for over a month. Meanwhile, Tomo encounters some men who are about to raid their carriage, so she starts fighting them. She finds their attack slow, and blows one away even though she's trying to hold back. She attacks with her sword, but it's way too sharp, and she accidentally cuts both of them in half. The remaining man tries to run, but Tomo dashes in front of him and knocks him out. She brings him back to the inn, and Makoto gets angry at her for slaughtering the men. He removes the bandit's chest piece and finds that it's actually a woman yelling at Tomo for not checking. Rin walks in on their conversation and sees Makoto speaking, but it just sounds like gibberish to her, and Makoto is shocked to learn this. He tells Rin to get some food and head to bed, and she thanks him for all his kindness, even calling him her brother. She shows them a sketch of her sister Toa, but the picture seems to surprise Makoto. Rin wishes him good night, but we see her feeling conflicted outside. Makoto examines the memories of the woman Tomo captured, and finds that she's one of the thieves from the Adventurers Guild, and somehow has a connection with Rin. He also mentions that Toa is being held by these thieves, so he tells Tomo and Mio to rescue her. Mio thinks there's no rush, but Makoto has a serious look, so they both leave immediately, and we learn that it's because Toa looks just like his junior from his old world. Mio and Tomo talk about how Makoto's attitude changed right after seeing the picture. Mio wonders if he knows Rin's sister, but Tomo doesn't think it's possible since he doesn't know anyone else in this world, mentioning how she's seen his memories. Mio gets jealous hearing this, wanting to know more about Makoto, but Tomo tells her to get to know him herself. Mio gets scared thinking about his look, so they think they better save the girl as soon as possible. Makoto and Rin head to the trading exchange, and Makoto tells her not to worry, because he sent Tomo and Mio to rescue her sister. In a flashback, we learn that they fell into debt while trying to become adventurers, but her sister failed to pay it off, telling Rin to run away, but she also ends up getting caught. We see Toa as she loses hope, but Tomo and Mio appear, and Mio heals her with her magic. They prepare to head back, and find the door locked, but Mio dissolves it with her magic. They are about to leave, but a man named Melis stops them, and Toa recognizes him as Setsuya's strongest adventurer. Meanwhile, Makoto is amazed that he sold his demi-plane fruit for 500 gold, and Rin starts wondering about his identity. They return to the inn, but Rin notices a man and runs off, so Makoto uses his investigative kai, and sees her meeting with the adventurers. She reports how Makoto sold some strange fruit for 500 gold, and the leader tells her to steal it, saying it would be enough to pay off their debt. She doesn't want to do it, but thinks of her sister and ends up agreeing. Meanwhile, Melis wonders how Toa is able to move, and we learn he's the boss of the group. Tomo is recognized as having recorded a level over 1000, but the men think it's too high, so they must have faked their level, but Melis invites them to join his group, saying he can make them rich. Tomo and Mio both declined, so Melis roasts them for following Makoto since he's only level 1. This pisses them both off, so they swing at him, but he blocks it with his barrier, and Toa recognizes it as the Clay Aegis, so she thinks they have no chance of winning. Meanwhile, Rin thinks about what she should do, because she doesn't want to steal from Makoto. The receptionist tells her to move along, but Makoto appears and mentions she's his friend. The man remembers their previous encounter, so he instantly apologizes. Rin cries hearing that he sees her as a friend, and Makoto is determined to protect her. Melis sends his men to attack, but Tomo smashes through the barrier and blows him away. She continues to beat up the men, even throwing them through the walls of the other cells. Mio beats Melis to vent her frustration, and they end up destroying the whole building. Toa wonders if she's dreaming, but Melis sneaks up on her and holds her hostage, but he just ends up getting sent flying. Tomo wonders if they overdid it, but Mio thinks they deserved it for insulting their master. However, they start arguing over who did more work, so Tomo decides to show off her swordsmanship, slashing through the town. Mio refuses to lose, so she also shows off, and they both continue to cause destruction in the town. They return to the inn, and the sisters are finally reunited. They meet Makoto, and Toa thanks them for saving her, while Makoto realizes she's identical to Nikumi besides her hair color. The girls are exhausted and fall asleep, and Tomo thinks it all turned out well, but Makoto asks for some of Mio's silk, and he suddenly ties them both up. He thanks them for saving Toa, but points out all the damage they caused, so he launches them away to let them reflect on their actions. After the chaos of destroying the village, the group flees toward the nearby town of Sage, joined by the other adventurers who were also captured by Melis. While traveling, they stop at a guild, informing the receptionist that Zetsuya was destroyed by monsters, but luckily, all the residents escaped, and we learn that Tomo used her abilities to erase everyone's memories except for Toa and Rin. The receptionist asks them if the monsters are still there, but they mention that Mio and Tomo took care of it, since their level is over 1,000, but she doesn't believe them, because no one has such a high level, and we learn that since Setsuya was destroyed before news of their registration could spread, they need to register again. Makoto thinks that the jealousy between Tomo and Mio might cause further trouble and lead to destruction in Sage, so he shares the story of a samurai who went alone on a journey to gain strength, and this story convinces Tomo that she must also do the same to improve her level, so she asks for his permission to go train in the wilderness. After Tomo leaves, Mio hopes to have all of her master's attention, but Toa's presence poses a threat. As the group continues its journey to Sage, Makoto senses the presence of killer bees using his kai. He tells Mio to handle it, so she uses her wind blade to slice them up, which impresses everyone. Makoto tells them to keep moving, but Toa insists on extracting rare items from the monsters. Makoto struggles to look her in the eye, but when she starts cutting up the bodies, he feels disgusted and loses interest. They continue fighting monsters along the way, and Makoto names his group the Kuzunoha Trading Company. As they continue traveling, they encounter rare monsters called the Ruby Eyes. Makoto tells Mio to deal with it, but the adventurers ask her not to damage the valuable parts of the bees, so she gets frustrated and tells Makoto to do it himself. With no other choice, Makoto takes up his bow and arrow and targets the weak spot of the Ruby Eyes, taking them all out in an instant. The group admires his remarkable skills, but their attention quickly shifts to collecting the loot, and they manage to collect 12 Ruby Eyes before reaching Sage. When they visit the Adventurers Guild, Toa thanks Makoto since she leveled up during their journey, but he feels sad since he's still at level 1 despite killing so many bees. He comes across an S-rank quest, where a trading company is looking for the Ruby Eyes, and since the group had already collected them, he thinks it's easy money and accepts the job. They divide the loot from their hunt, where Makoto only keeps the Ruby Eyes and a few of the other valuable materials, leaving the rest for the others. They all bid each other farewell, but he suggests celebrating before they part ways. They also share their contacts through their license cards, which also have the function of making calls and accessing information. At the dinner, the group bonds and learns more about each other. The adventurers introduce themselves. There's Louisa the Gunner, Hazel the Alchemy Meister, and Nina the Priest Knight. Nina then challenges Makoto to an arm wrestling match, but she's no match for him, and he easily defeats her. Toa warns him about the quest, because there are various rumors of bad things happening to those that work with the Rembrandt Trading Company. This makes him cautious, and he secretly inspects the Ruby Eyes before taking them to his room. Since Mio is sharing the room with him, she hopes they'll get intimate, and to increase her odds, she even considers destroying one of the beds, but he has no interest and goes straight to sleep. The next day, Makoto can now create gates, and everyone returns to the Demi-Plane, where he meets Tomo's clone and reunites with Emma, who acts as his secretary. She informs him that every species in the Demi-Plane is settling in and performing their duties, also mentioning that they're constructing a giant castle for him, just like the one from his memories. We learn that Tomo hasn't made any contact with the group since she left for her training. As Makoto wonders how she's going, the dwarf chief rushes to take him to their workshop. He proudly presents several sets of armor they crafted, but he refuses to wear them since he's an archer, and not a knight who needs armor. The dwarves are heartbroken and start crying, but he notices a coat that suits his style, and learns it was also created by Rugu. Rugu tells him it will also absorb his mana, saying it will probably kill him instantly, but Makoto puts it on anyway, and he's completely fine. Rugu explains that the coat can change colors, switching between defense and mobility, but it soon fails to absorb all of Makoto's mana and gets torn. Makoto asks if he can make it more durable, and Rugu promises to make one that will be able to kill him instantly, so Makoto worries about his motivation. On the other hand, the Alki have transformed into humans using magic, and they primarily focus on collecting ingredients, since they can even consume the most poisonous items without any side effects. The following day, Makoto takes the Ruby Eyes and heads to the Rembrandt Trading Company, where he's warmly welcomed by the company's president Patrick and his butler Morris. Meanwhile, an adventurer named Lime visits the guild to learn the identity of the one who took the job of finding Ruby Eyes, so the receptionist tells him about Makoto. Makoto tells Patrick that due to a curse, he can't speak, so he communicates using his bubbles. He then introduces himself as a level 1 E-class adventurer, but the mere mention of this disappoints Patrick, thinking Makoto is just another overconfident rookie dreaming of success. But Makoto pulls out the Ruby Eyes, and this shocks him. He quickly confirms their authenticity and asks for forgiveness for his rudeness. Makoto asks him why he needs these eyes, so he reveals that he needs them to create a magical medicine called Ambrosia to cure his wife and daughters, who are afflicted with a level 8 curse. Makoto sympathizes with him and tells him he knows an alchemy meister who can help them create the medicine, but Patrick mentions that they still need more rubies to create the antidote. But Makoto cuts him off and gives him all the ruby eyes that he has, and Patrick and his servants are overwhelmed with joy. Patrick officially gives him the job receipt and wishes him luck with his registration exam at the Merchant Guild, but hearing this shocks him because he was unaware of any test. Makoto soon reaches the Merchant Guild, where the receptionist tells him about the written exam, and if he passes it, he will then need to complete the practical material gathering test, adding that if he fails, he will need to wait 6 months before he can apply again. To prepare for the written test, he buys an expensive book to study, but upon looking at the contents, he immediately regrets his decision. The receptionist thinks he must find it challenging, saying the test is almost impossible to pass, but Makoto instantly asks to take the test, since it's just grade school maths. He breezes through the written test in just 5 minutes, and the examiner is shocked to see his near-perfect score, while Makoto wonders about the state of education in this world. In the next part of the exam, the examiner instructs him to randomly choose the item he must obtain. As he makes the selection, the examiner boasts that the items that he needs to find are super rare, and he must bring something that's of equal or greater value within the next 3 days to pass the exam. But Makoto thinks that the items he collected with the adventurers are rare, so he takes them out as a substitute, shocking the examiner. On the other hand, Tomo proves her strength as she defeats a massive crab monster and shares a feast with her companions. However, a demi-human brings a message from Emma that Mio has entered the memory vault, so she gets jealous and rushes back. As she returns, Tomo asks if Mio has gone through Makoto's memories, but Emma assures her that she's only translating them. Tomo asks if anything happened between her and Makoto while she was away, but Mio just changes the topic. Later at a restaurant, Makoto struggles to order anything due to the language barrier. He unexpectedly orders what appears to be a lemonade, but when it's served, it's not what he expected, and he longs for a real meal. We see Lime spying on him, and the people there discuss the defeat of the killer bees and giant crab monster. After his unpleasant experience trying new food, Makoto returns to the demi-plane to enjoy his fruits, but he learns from Tomo's clone that production has decreased due to erratic weather patterns. Makoto talks about his dream of creating an illusory city, explaining that it would be a city that people would only find if they got lost in the mist. The people would be given rare foods and items, which would increase their reputation and value in the outside world. But he suddenly receives a telepathic call, alerting him that Mio is in danger. He asks a human alky about the situation, who informs him that while translating memories, Mio came across something she wanted to watch, but Tomo is stopping her. Makoto intervenes, and asks Tomo what's going on. We learn that Mio saw Makoto's memories of an anime and instantly became a fan, so they are fighting about whether anime or historical dramas are better. After their pleading, Makoto allows them to continue watching, but tells them not to fight over it again. At night, Makoto plans to rest in his room, but when he notices that there are only 2 beds for the 3 of them, he asks the 2 to give him one of the beds, but they tell him to pick one of them to share the bed with. He refuses to choose, so he ends up sleeping in a chair instead. The next morning, Makoto discusses creating a medicine with Hazel, but as they prepare to head out, Lime watches them from a distance, telling his friends to launch an all-out attack on them. Makoto and Hazel visit the Rembrandt Trading Company, but it makes Hazel uneasy because the company is well known in the city, and he fears upsetting them. Morris takes them to the lab, where Hazel starts reading the recipe, and is surprised by how easy it is to make, but he's told that extracting fluid from Ruby Eyes is the only difficult part. He starts gathering magic, but Makoto gets irritated by how much the goddess is being mentioned in his incantation. He also finds Hazel's method inefficient, so he secretly interferes and helps him out. Hazel asks Morris if they're using a replacement method, and he says it's because the ambrosia flower in the original recipe is rare, so they're using the ruby eyes instead, because the bees feed on the flower. But this gives Makoto the idea of making the flowers his company's specialty if he can get his hands on them. Hazel soon creates a bottle of the ambrosia, which Morris takes to Patrick, and while he's gone, they make 2 more potions, but when he comes back and slams the door, it causes Hazel to drop the potion he's holding, but Makoto manages to catch it before it hits the ground. Morris takes them to Patrick, who's injured because he tried to feed the ambrosia to his wife, but got attacked by her, and it took several guards to stop her. He says that this spasm was nothing like before, but Hazel thinks it wasn't a spasm, and something was added to the curse to stop her from taking the medicine, which is possible with level 8 and above curses. Patrick talks about his wife, saying how she only had a mild fever, but she never recovered, and eventually lost her sanity. He starts crying because he thought the curse would end today, and Makoto asks to be taken to her room. He mentions that he'll restrain her to make sure she takes the medicine, but Patrick thinks it'll be impossible for him since he's so low level. But Hazel assures him that he'll be alright, since Makoto is the one who killed the ruby eyes, and Morris also shows confidence in his abilities. Makoto uses the scent of the ambrosia to draw her out, and then uses the judo moves his sister taught him to hold her in place, while Patrick makes her drink the medicine, and starts crying when she is cured. They also feed the cure to both the girls, and he thanks Makoto and the goddess, but Makoto isn't happy he's thanking the goddess. Makoto leaves Hazel behind to refine the potion, and he finds Mio and Tomo waiting for him outside, but they are suddenly attacked by a group, and he dodges their attacks, but they take them head on, because they want to check their opponent's strength. Their attacks have no effect, and Lime tells Tomo and Mio to join them. Tomo rejects his offer, but Mio wonders how much he's willing to pay. Lime offers her 10 gold, so she decides not to participate in the fight, which makes Tomo angry at her for betraying them, but she's just pretending to be on their side, because Makoto doesn't want them to repeat the same mistake as they made in Zetsuya. Makoto asks Tomo to take care of them, and she easily defeats them. Lime begs them to show mercy, and she spares him because she sees something in his memories. He apologizes for putting a sleeping curse on Patrick's family, which surprises Makoto, because the curse was a fatal one. Makoto asks him why he did this, and he says that a few months ago, he met a man who told him that the adventurers marked by the Rembrandt Company had difficulty finding work. The man suggested putting a sleeping curse on Patrick's family so he would rethink his ways, and Lime says that the man assured him the curse wouldn't harm anyone. Tomo reads his mind to see if he's telling the truth, and she sees he isn't lying, so they decide to let him go, but before he can leave, Mio takes all his gold since she stayed out of the fight. A few days later, Lime apologizes to Patrick, who accepts his apology, but tells him that he'll restrict what he can do as an adventurer, but Lime says he no longer wants to be an adventurer. We see him watching the orphanage where he grew up, when Tomo arrives and gives him a sword, which Makoto sent for him since he broke his old blade. He tells her that it was only because he heard someone from the orphanage died due to the Rembrandt Company that he fell into the man's scheme and placed the curse. She asks him to become her spy, and in return, she'll protect him and the orphanage, so he accepts her offer. Tomo then spies on Patrick, talking with Morris about how it would be bad for them if Makoto opens his own company, which makes her suspicious of them. They return to the demiplane, and Emma tells them there's a problem regarding the 3 of them. She tells them that the warriors in the demiplane have started to lose confidence in their training, because they keep getting defeated by the 3 of them. Mio thinks that they shouldn't fight them for a while, but Tomo is against this idea, since it'll make everyone think that they've been abandoned. Makoto wants to check up on everyone, so he tells Tomo to meet with the lizard man, and asks Mio to go with him to check on the Alki. They go with Emma, and overhear the orcs talking about their upcoming training, and how it's depressing to fight Makoto, since Tomo and Mio let themselves get hit, but they can't even get close to Makoto. On their way, they meet Tomo, who tells them that the lizardman's situation is similar to the orcs. Makoto notes that the different races aren't exchanging information with each other, and Emma mentions that everyone prefers to keep their combat techniques hidden from the other races. but he thinks that it'll be interesting to see them trying each other's styles. So they gather all the lizard men and orcs and tell them they're doing a special training to see how powerful they are. Both sides send their most powerful warrior and the match begins. The fighters destroy the ring, which impresses Makoto, but he keeps a straight face because it's what Tomo asked him to do. The match ends with the orcs' victory, but Tomo isn't impressed and calls them both weaklings. She asks one of the orcs why they're weak, and he says that even though they seem weak to her, the match was incredible for them, but she says that they've yet to reach the level of strength that is expected of them. Makoto asks her not to go too hard on them, but she ignores him and says that they're expected to be strong enough so they can be relied upon. Since they can't measure their strength correctly by fighting the three of them, they will gather every week to fight against each other. Their strength will be measured, and they'll be given a ranking, saying it also applies to the dwarves and Alkies. Everyone is concerned that their fighting techniques will be exposed, but Tomo says that since they're so weak, they shouldn't worry about this. They'll prove their strength by winning in these matches, and the ones at the top of the ranking will be known as great warriors, and those who fail to show any results should find other work, because there are more ways to contribute than just being a warrior. Tomo's clone invites Makoto to say a few words, but he's too nervous, so he just agrees with Tomo, saying they don't have anything worth concealing, but he knows they can get stronger, so they should help each other improve. While he's thinking about what to name this new ranking system, Tomo tells everyone to get ready for the dimension ranking, but Makoto isn't sure about the name. Upon retesting their levels, Mio is at level 1500, while Tomo is now at level 1340, which Makoto thinks is impressive since she increased her level by 20, while he is still stuck at 1. But Tomo isn't happy, because she expected a better result from her training. The receptionist mentions that the guild is short-handed, because most of their top members have left or are injured, so he's requested to train other adventurers, and Makoto says he knows a group of adventurers that can help. Makoto asks Tomo to train Toa and the others, so she thinks about looking for a place to train near the guild, but she remembers how Makoto reacted when he saw Toa, making her think that she must resemble someone from his previous life. She doesn't want anything to affect her time with him, so she thinks she needs to quickly make them strong enough and independent of Makoto. The training starts, and the group goes to fight a swarm of Shadow Tails, but Tomo has to step in and save them, after which she yells at them for their poor strategy. She decides to teach them basic tactics, so she tells Hazel to make a trap using water and earth magic, and tells Louisa to find a place with a clear view. She tells Hazel to add poison to the mud, and then lets them continue the fight. The monkeys step into the trap and can't move, giving Louisa a clear target to aim at, and the ones who survive are defeated by Nina, who hits them head on, and Toa, who uses her thief skills to conceal herself and attack from behind. She tells Hazel that by using this strategy, he can use offensive magic freely, because he doesn't have to heal anyone except Nina, so they defeat all of their enemies following her strategy. After their successful mission, she tells them they'll find another nest on their own, because even if their level isn't high, they should continue challenging their limits and prove they're the best. Tomo returns to the guild, and informs the receptionist that she's assigned the job of defeating the Shadowtail nests to Toa and her team. The receptionist is shocked, because she doubts they're strong enough for the task, but she's surprised when the group shows up with the tails of 2 monkey lords, proving that they cleared 2 nests. On the other hand, Makoto tells Mio to go to the Tineract forest and find the ambrosia flower, because he wants it to become their signature product. He goes to see Patrick, and requests to rent one of their stores, but Patrick wonders why he doesn't want to buy his own shop. We see Makoto learn from the Merchant Guild's receptionist that if someone buys their own shop, the government will ask them to spy for them if they're in the Ion Kingdom. Patrick tells him there's a neutral city that isn't tied to any country, and he thinks it would be perfect for him to start his store. He even knows someone in that city, so he asks Makoto to wait until he can contact him. Meanwhile, Mio reaches the Tineract forest, but she doesn't like it because there seems to be nothing tasty there. A human party also enters the forest, and they are watched by 2 elves, who don't seem happy about them trespassing. The party is soon defeated, and one of the elves named Aqua tells her partner Eris that their enemies are alive, but she wouldn't have hesitated to kill them if they'd laid their hands on the Crimson Lotus. A party is held to celebrate Makoto's new company, and he thanks everyone. He's a little shy, So he asks Tomo to speak with everyone since it's her specialty, but she tells him that everyone wants to hear his voice. Tomo's clone brings him a drink, and he pats her head, which makes Tomo happy because they're connected. Mio gets jealous and brings out a dish, which she had discovered in Saich. She thinks she should feed it to him, but he eats it himself, making her sad. Tomo takes Mio away from Makoto, because she wants everyone to spend time with him. The Aoki Akina approaches him, and mentions that she can now maintain her human form for a longer time. She also gives him a report of their journey to the Tinnarak forest, and reveals the location of the ambrosia flower. She wanted to bring him a sample, but couldn't because the forest is ruled by another race. Makoto wonders if all the Aokis have gotten used to living in the demiplane, and she tells him that they've adjusted well, all thanks to him. The lizard man Liddy also appears before Makoto to thank him, because he learned new techniques in their joint training. He reveals that he's even getting trained in unarmed combat by Tomo, but this worries Makoto, because he doesn't want everyone to become like her. Biren wonders if he likes staying in Saich, and he says that it's a good place to live, but sometimes Mio and Tomo cause problems. He wonders if Biren and the others are becoming bored since they never leave the demiplane, but Biren considers the place a paradise, and says they don't need anything else. He's happy to craft weapons for everyone, but is also interested in the weapons of the outside world, so Makoto allows him to work in a new shop at Saich. Later on, an orc tells him that he's the new guide for the adventurers in Mirage City, a fake town created to trade goods that exist only in the demiplane with the outside world. Makoto thanks him for his services, and he's glad to be useful. The whole crowd starts shouting, and they all want to talk with him. Mio complains to Tomo that she wanted to be the one to give the report about the ambrosia flower and the people guarding it, but Tomo tells her they should wait until they're sure. Suddenly, they stop sensing Makoto's presence, which makes them worried. His presence returns, and quickly they rush to his location, where they find him practicing archery. Mio hugs him while crying, and he wonders what happened. Tomo wonders how he practices his archery, and he tells her that he focuses on the target by emptying his mind, so she realizes that he's making his consciousness vanish and reappear to shoot his targets. Mio notes that a person can only do this if they're dead, so when he was practicing, it felt like he'd died. Makoto assures them he's fine and they don't need to worry, but Tomo tells him that his mana capacity is increasing. She notes that a person's mana is normally fixed and can't be increased, but by experiencing death and rebirth, his mana has increased and is now comparable to that of the goddess. The demi-plane has also expanded, and if the goddess finds out about this, she won't be happy, so they must suppress his mana. The next day, Makoto has supplies for his store, but he's
God, that hurts.
exhausted since he can't practice archery, and because Mio keeps making moves on him. He's lost in thoughts when a bag belonging to a demi-human comes flying towards him.
It's not my lungs that hurts, just
And sees
my
the
fucking
demi-human's
rib.
face, which
Jesus.
makes him realize that he looks similar to them. A girl starts hitting on Makoto, making him notice he's in a red light district. But before things go too far, he's taken away by Tomo and Mio. They get angry at him and wonder if they aren't good enough for him. He considers them his family, but is embarrassed to say this, and instead tells them that they have nothing to do with what he was doing. This makes them furious, and they tear apart his clothes, but before they can do anything, he runs away by creating a mist gate. Emma sees Makoto hanging on a tree, and from the pink mist and spider webs, she understands the situation. She tells him that his protective gear is ready, so he goes to Rugu. He tries his new gear and is pleased with it, but suddenly Mio arrives and apologizes for the previous night. He says it's alright, but tells her not to do it again. He asks her about the race guarding the ambrosia flowers, and she tells him to leave that to her, but he gets scared of what she'll do, and decides to go with her. They soon reach the Tinnarak forest, and because they sense someone following them, they decide to get out of their sight. They find the ambrosia flowers, and Makoto feels someone must be taking care of them because of how great they look. He gets a flashback, where we see him holding his sister's hand, so he asks Mio to hold his hand, since the ground is slippery. She gets happy by this, but they're interrupted by Aqua and Eris, which makes Mio mad. The humans also arrive and get ready to steal the flowers, making the forest guardians think they're all thieves. Eris attacks using ice magic, and the human girl asks Makoto why he isn't fighting back, as he realizes she's the same girl from the night before. Makoto easily deflects Eris's attack, so she attacks with her flaming arrows, but he blocks them with his defensive Kai. He thinks he can get the situation under control, but notices Mio getting angrier, preparing to kill everyone. Tomo telepathically communicates with Makoto, and he asks for her help, but she refuses because he went along with Mio, and also held her hand. So to make her help him, he allows her to make a katana and cultivate rice. She tells him to distract the adventurers so she can open a mist gate and transfer them to the Mirage City, and to calm Mio, he should feed her her favorite food. Makoto pushes the adventurers into the mist gate, and then gives his blood to Mio, bringing her back to normal. She uses her dark magic to absorb the mana of
Okay,
the
I
elves
like
and
that
stop
one.
their attacks. Makoto tells her to tie them up in case they attack again, and he explains that he didn't come to steal the flowers, saying he just wants to talk, so they take them to their village, while Makoto realizes that a familiar magic barrier has been set up around the village to hide its presence. They're greeted by the elders and their representative Nil, who calls himself a forest ogre, surprising Mio because she thought they were elves. Nil's son Adano arrives to greet Makoto, and mentions that they aren't different from elves, even if they change their names. The elders say that elves need the forest to survive, whereas the forest ogres protect the forest, but Adano
Oh, that's
wonders
even
how long
better.
they plan to live in hiding, because the dragon's barrier is constantly getting weaker. Makoto mentions he's just a merchant looking for medicinal ingredients, but Adano is suspicious of how strong he is, so the elders continue to question him. Afterwards, Aqua and Eris apologize to Makoto, and ask him to meet their master Mundo, who arrives by breaking the wall. He shakes Makoto's hand, but seeing him hold his hand for longer than she ever could, Mio gets angry and sends him flying. Makoto tells Mio he wants her to spy on Adano and Mundo, which excites her because she has seen spies in his memories. After gathering the information, she reports to Makoto that Mundo is possessed by something, whereas Adano is in contact with the demons, so he tells her to go back to the demi-plane and swap with Tomo, because there's something he wants to confirm with her. The elves throw a feast for him, but he sees Mundo and Adano arguing. Suddenly, a skeleton monster appears from Mundo's body and kills Adano, so Makoto confronts him. He notes that he just sucked the life force out of Mundo's body and that he's still alive, but he had to kill Adano because of his connections with a particular woman. Based on his gaming knowledge, Makoto knows that the monster is a lich. The monster tries to attack him, but thanks to Makoto's resistance against status effects, it doesn't work on him. He then uses Mio's dark magic to absorb the lich's mana, completely overwhelming him. Tomo arrives, and transfers the lich through a gate so Makoto can talk to him later. His victory surprises everyone, and they question if he's really a merchant, revealing they had planned to kill him after the feast, which makes him horrified. Tomo talks to Nell, but he fails to recognize her, so she reminds him that he was the one who asked her to set up the mist barrier around their village. She intimidates him, and he suddenly realizes who she is, so he quickly tells everyone to bow to her, but she tells them to instead bow before Makoto since he's her master. They return to interrogate the lich, and Makoto asks him why he was in the village. He says that he wanted to observe the forest ogres and their abilities, but Tomo asks him why he became an undead. He reveals he wants to become a Grant, a species superior to humans in every way, and asks Makoto how he defeated him, so Makoto explains that he used dark magic to consume his mana when he was casting his spell. The lich thinks he's lying because it would require a ridiculous amount of mana, and this angers Mio and Tomo, who threaten to kill him, but Makoto calms them down. He wonders if the lich has any spell books he can buy, and the lich thinks he's messing with him, but Makoto mentions how he only learned magic from a single page written by Emma. Tomo suggests keeping the lich around to help him learn magic, and she mentions how he must want to become a Grant because he knows of other worlds that aren't created by the goddess, and he must believe Grants can travel between worlds. Makoto wonders if he can return to his old world, but Tomo thinks it's impossible, because many have tried to travel between worlds, and only a few have succeeded. She reveals that Grants aren't the ones with the power to travel between worlds, but rather those who have successfully moved worlds. Makoto wonders if there's a way to do it, but according to Tomo, even if the goddess herself opened up a path, the survival rate is less than 10%. She proposes that Makoto form a contract with the lich since he wants to learn magic from him, and they both agree. Makoto is too strong, so he needs to lower his mana in order to form the contract. The ritual is completed, and the Lich returns to his human form, thanking Makoto for the opportunity to be his servant, and he's given the name Shiki. Tomo tells him he has a lot to learn, but there's suddenly an explosion, and Tomo collapses, apologizing for her mistake. Makoto tells Mio to stop Tomo's bleeding, and he takes Shiki toward the explosion site. Shiki tries to follow him, but falls to the ground because he isn't familiar with his new body. He decides to save his mana and instead treat the wounded from there, which surprises Makoto, as he wasn't expecting him to have healing magic. Makoto runs toward the explosion site and comes across a few injured people. One of them is an Aoki named Hokuto, but he finds this odd because Aokis should be able to heal quickly, and seeing him in this state reminds him of when his cat died in his past life. Shiki starts healing them using his magic, but some of them are too badly hurt, so he asks Makoto for help. But Makoto can't use healing magic, and instead uses Kai, which isn't enough, so he combines 2 Kai spells, and successfully heals him. He's confused why he senses his mana covering the area, and a girl hands him a necklace, which he remembers belonging to the orc from the party. Makoto reaches the explosion site and finds traces of a missed gate, and he wonders if it's due to the explosion. He notices more gates and senses Tomo's clone, as well as the orc and adventurers from the other side of the gate. The gates start closing, and he remembers what Mio told him about a person's consciousness disappearing when they die. There's only one gate left, and he tries to save the adventurer on the other side, but he starts seeing their memories. We learn that the girl he met in the red light district was after him as part of her plan. She and her fellow adventurers stole several items from the Mirage City, but as they were escaping, a young orc saw them, and when the orc and the others tried to stop them, the girl threw one of the bags, but inside it was a ring that had absorbed Makoto's mana, which caused the explosion. Tomo's clone tried to protect everyone using a water wall, but the explosion was so powerful that it broke through the barrier, killing everyone. It created a missed gate, which is how the girl teleported to Saich, where she's still worried about the stolen weapons. Suddenly mist surrounds her, and Makoto appears with a terrifying look. He isn't wearing his mask, so the girl starts insulting him for his looks, but he ignores this and wishes he killed her before. She mentions she's a level 96 hunter, but Makoto ignores this and takes out the traditional weapon of the orcs. She attacks Makoto, who cuts off her hands and knocks her down, telling her she deserves it. She begs him to stay away, but he finds her irritating and finishes her off. Tears start rolling down his eyes, and he wonders if it's because this is the first time he's intentionally killed someone, or because of the deaths caused by the explosion, but he concludes that it's because dying was a sad thing in the world he used to live in. The next day, Makoto holds a traditional orc funeral for the dead and pretends to be fine. He tells Tomo about his experience of seeing the girl's memories, and she feels happy knowing he killed the adventurer as the true king of the Demiplane. He wonders if he's becoming like them because of the contracts, but this makes Tomo laugh, and Shiki explains that no part of the servant can enter the master's body. Tomo believes he could use her power because of their connection, which makes Mio angry, but Tomo clarifies she's talking about the trust between them. Shiki tells him he can use any of his servant's power, but it'll take time to get used to it. Tomo explains that the trust between master and the servant is the key, so when a master faces an emergency, the servant's power may manifest in him. Mio gets jealous because Makoto used Tomo's power, and the girls start fighting over who's closer to him. Later, Makoto tells Emma about creating a wall around the Mirage City to protect the weak and the children, and he also wants the Lizardmen to patrol the area. He tells the Aokis to take turns in pretending to be adventurers, staying in Mirage City so they can gather information. The dwarves go on to brief him on managing the warehouse, where they plan to dispose of the waste immediately and add safety precautions. After meeting the parents of the dead orc, Makoto meets his friend and apologizes, but the orc reminds him that he saved their village, so they all will happily offer their lives for him, but he still feels bad and promises to make things right. Makoto meets Patrick, who tells him about the neutral town of the Rotsgard Academy. He shows Makoto a map, which surprises him because it looks a lot like Japan. Makoto plans to leave immediately, but before going, he reveals he lied and removes his mask. They are shocked to see his face, but Patrick assures him he still trusts him, mentioning how he never stopped loving his family even when they were transformed by the curse, but Makoto is a little offended by the comparison. Mio and Tomo wonder why he's only taking Shiki with him on his trip, but he explains that Shiki will be more helpful because he's a former human researcher, and he also won't destroy any towns. He mentions that he was fine with not understanding the world before, but after the recent incident, he wants to learn more about their world and his parents. He apologizes for leaving, but gives Tomo his memories of swordsmanship, and Mio his memories of firearms. Tomo tells him that while he's gone, she'll try to get the forest ogres to move to the demiplane, whereas Mio will maintain Mirage City and their shop in Sage. Makoto and Shiki get ready to leave, but Makoto suddenly gets teleported somewhere else and is attacked by two adventurers, Sophia and Lancer. He dodges their attack but gets his fingers chopped off. On the other hand, Morris tells Patrick that the main forces from Lemia and Britannia will soon be fighting the demons. Makoto is confused at what's going on and remembers hearing the goddess's voice before getting teleported. Sophia thinks he's a demi-human, so she wonders if he's really the goddess's hero. She continues to attack, so he uses barriers and his strengthening Kai to protect himself, but it isn't enough to fully block her attacks. His injury is also more serious than he thought, so he uses a bowstring to stop the bleeding. He learns that a war has broken out between humans and demons, and his attackers have chosen to side with the demons. Lancer tells Sophia to dispose of Makoto because he's preventing the demon army from advancing, and Makoto thinks about retreating to the demiplane, but he knows he'll be followed, so he prepares to fight. He attacks with a rapid-fire barrage, and while his enemies are occupied with defending, he uses his concealing Kai and tries to escape, but crystal walls suddenly appear around him. Makoto uses barriers on his feet to break the walls, but Sophia and Lancer catch up to him. She thinks he isn't good at fighting, but has weird abilities, and Lancer believes he's receiving the goddess's protection. So Sophia puts on a ring that removes his protection, but Makoto tells them he wasn't receiving anything from the goddess in the first place. Makoto learns that Sophia is the famous dragon hunter, and Lancer is actually a dragon. He tells them he's a merchant and doesn't want to fight, but they don't believe him and prepare to attack. Since he has no other choice, he takes off the rings absorbing his mana, and uses his strengthening Kai which blows them away. He switches to his investigative Kai to see them through the dust, and he uses a special arrow made by the dwarves to fire a devastating shot. Sophia and Lancer try to block it, but it splits up into multiple shots and breaks through their defense. Makoto follows up with a water arrow, and Lancer thinks he can block it since he can also use water magic, but is surprised that Makoto's affinity for water magic is greater than him, causing him to freeze. Sophia uses this opportunity to chop off Makoto's head, but he narrowly dodges her attack. She again attacks him with all her strength, but Makoto blocks it with his arrow, and it breaks her sword. He's amazed by the work of the dwarves, but Sophia suddenly grabs him, and Lancer creates crystals in the sky, which he uses to continuously swap with Sophia, taking Makoto high into the air. She returns to the ground, and thinks that Makoto is done for, but he shoots fireballs to destroy the crystals, and fire starts raining from the sky, hitting both the demon and human armies. He uses the power from his mana rings to fire a huge water arrow, and everyone watches as a massive pillar descends. It freezes everyone around as it lands, while Makoto disappears into thin air. As the rings shatter, there's a massive water explosion, and it creates a whole new lake, but we see Sophia and Lancer manage to survive. They think Makoto must have died in the attack, but Sophia swears to kill him if he's still alive. When Makoto wakes up, he notices Tomo and Mio sleeping next to him, and surprisingly, all his injuries are healed. He tells everyone about Sophia and Lancer, and Shiki mentions that the goddess manipulated him to fight the demon army. Mio gets angry, but Makoto believes it's his fault because he got careless, and thinks he must increase the amount of mana he can use at once, so he decides to study at the academy with Shiki. Tomo thinks she and Mio should travel with them, because the goddess can interfere at any time, but he mentions he wants to hide them from her, calling them his trump card. Tomo introduces Makoto to her new clone, which she made using one of his rings, and he names her Como. Tomo mentions how Como won't end up like the previous clone, and this is basically their child, so Mio gets mad hearing this. We see that the forest ogres have also moved into the demi-plane, and Tomo plans to prepare them for the dimensional ranking. Their shop in Sage is opened, and a customer visits to get his blade repaired. He's unhappy with the demi-human employees, but Biren takes his blade and repairs it. Mio shows off how sharp it is, and it accidentally cuts the customer's cheek, but Eris quickly heals him. Everyone is impressed with their services, and even Patrick is amazed to see Makoto's shop. Makoto learns that during his battle with Sophia and Lancer, he unintentionally hurt both the human and demon armies. He realizes there were other heroes on the battlefield, so he wonders if he will meet them in the future. Later
That's
on,
not gonna
as
work.
Makoto thinks about his past life, Emma calls him for the feast, which is to celebrate their new shop and for his farewell. He reflects on everything that happened to him, and thinks that living in this world isn't that bad, but he immediately takes back his words when he sees Tomo and Mio fighting once again. On their way to Rothsgard, Makoto and Shiki reach the town of Obit. Makoto mentions that walking is tiring, but Shiki believes it's better than teleporting and getting found by the goddess. He asks Makoto to find something to eat while he searches for a nice place to stay. Makoto says he's fine staying anywhere, but Shiki can't allow them to stay at a cheap place because he knows it will upset Mio and Tomo, and Makoto wonders if leaving the demi-plane in their hands was the right decision. Back at the demi-plane, Mio practices cooking so she can impress Makoto, but her friends pass out after eating the food she prepared. Tomo's glad she didn't serve it directly to Makoto, but Mio isn't sure what went wrong, because she made the curry just like in Makoto's memories. Tomo wonders if Mio has ever eaten rice curry, and she tells her that she hasn't, because it's a dish from another world. She didn't even ask Makoto how to make it, because she wanted to surprise him. Emma and Biren wonder if the green part is a mineral ore, and she says it looked delicious in Makoto's memory, but they tell her that the original ingredient was probably a bell pepper. Mio eats the curry, and finds no issue with it, but Tomo tells her most people aren't able to eat minerals like her, and this surprises her. Tomo isn't sure if she studied cooking, but Mio mentions knowing how to use a flame. Tomo asks her to prepare toast to test her, and Mio thinks it's easy, but she uses her flames and burns it completely. On the other hand, Makoto tries blue meat for the first time, and is surprised by its texture. The restaurant owner wants him to at least pretend to enjoy the food, but Makoto tells him he liked its taste. He wonders if it's made from slime, which impresses the owner, and he thinks Makoto must be a good adventurer because he easily identified the ingredient. He mentions he's submitted a request to the guild for slime hunting and asks Makoto for help, but he tells him that he's mainly a merchant and is traveling to Rothsgard. This draws everyone's attention, and Makoto realizes he's being watched, so he leaves after paying his bill with a gold coin. Makoto walks around the city and everyone makes fun of his ugliness, which makes him question his decision to take off his mask, but he notes this is still tolerable compared to his first visit to the humans' town. Makoto goes to the guild, where the receptionist can't believe he completed a special mission while being just an E-rank adventurer. He notices the slime hunting quest, but he can't accept it because there's a B-rank requirement. He hears a girl telling the receptionist that the moon over the ruined castle is attacking, which surprises him because it's a song he loved in his previous life. She asks why they aren't helping her, but the receptionist tells her that they're understaffed and can't handle a bandit group with over 100 members. The girl gets emotional and wonders why this is happening to them, even though they offer their prayers to the goddess. A few of the adventurers make fun of her, saying that if prayers worked, there wouldn't be a need for adventurers, but the girl believes the goddess is angry because of people like them. The adventurers start harassing the girl, and she rushes out in tears. Makoto walks in the street and realizes he's being followed. He uses his Kai and learns that the adventurers are attacking the girl and her partner, so he decides to help them. He defeats the men following him and sends them flying towards the harassers. One of them takes out his knife to attack Makoto, but he doesn't give him a chance and defeats them easily. He heals her partner using his healing Kai, and she wonders if he's helping them because he's a demi-human, but he tells her that despite his ugly appearance, he's a human. He introduces himself, and the girl tells him she's Lana from the Toppa village, and her partner is Ito, a werewolf, which surprises Makoto because he thought werewolves were large and scary. Makoto wonders why she can't wait for the guild to deal with the bandits, and Lana reveals that the bandits tortured their village's strongest fighter Barkley, and killed his wife. The villagers want to accept the bandits' request and share their resources, but every village they've robbed so far has been slaughtered. Ito regains consciousness and asks Lana if the guild will help them, but she tells him no, and he apologizes for not being strong enough to deal with the bandits. Makoto says he'll escort them to their village, but they mention that it'll take a long time to reach it because it's very far. He tells them it's fine and asks them not to bite their tongue as he grabs them and starts jumping from one tree to the next. They reach the village and Lana tells him to wait while she explains the situation to everyone. After she leaves, Makoto asks Ito if he isn't part of the village, and he's surprised that Makoto can speak their language. Ito reveals that Lana and a few villagers are kind to him, but the others will never allow a demi-human like him to enter their village. Makoto uses his investigative Kai and learns that the bandits have hurt several villagers, which impresses Ito, who thinks that Makoto also has a great sense of smell like him. He tells Ito that he knew he was pretending to be unconscious when he was carrying him, thinking he couldn't face Lana after putting her in danger, but he advises him to protect her if he wishes to be with her. Makoto's investigative Kai detects something else, and he starts going towards the mountain, but Ito tries to stop him, and he realizes that Ito also knows what's present there. Ito isn't sure why he's doing this, so he mentions not liking the bandits using his favorite song's name. Ito wonders how he can ever repay him, so he tells him that he owns a trading company where several demi-humans work, so if they ever come to their village, they should treat them well. In the demi-plane, more people have fallen victim to Mio's cooking, who still isn't sure what she's doing wrong. Tomo tells her that just using good ingredients won't make the food taste good, because different species have different tastes, and this surprises Mio, who never thought cooking would be this difficult. Tomo thinks Mio should test her cooking on Lime, because he's a human just like Makoto, but this will be painful for Lime, so she suggests Mio to travel the world to improve her cooking. Mio agrees to this idea, which makes everyone happy, since they won't have to eat her cooking anymore. On the other hand, Makoto finds the bandits and decides to wear his mask, because he doesn't want them to figure out his identity. He uses silencing Kai, which removes all the sound in their surroundings and causes a panic among the bandits. He uses this opportunity to attack them with arrows, and when they try to counterattack, his armor protects him. He doesn't want to waste his arrows, so he uses a fire arrow to knock out everyone in a single attack. Only one bandit remains, who begs Makoto to spare his life, but he says he isn't going to kill him, and asks him to change their group's name. Makoto meets Shiki, who's found a room that costs 3 gold coins, which Makoto finds expensive, but Shiki reveals that the heroes are treated well by the Lemia Kingdom and Gritonia Empire, so he can't allow Makoto to be the only one who's living in poverty. Makoto remembers the heroes from his fight with the demons, and wonders when he'll meet them. We see Makoto in his previous life, where he meets a girl named Hibiki, who wonders how he's in the archery club when he's so average, but she's a little jealous of him because unlike him, she has a boring life, and she always gets what she wants. Suddenly a white light appears, and she's teleported to another world, where the goddess asks her to become a hero. She assures Hibiki that she won't be alone against demons, since she'll also send another hero to help her, and she'll get all kinds of powers. The goddess wonders if Hibiki wants a challenging life, which tempts Hibiki, so the goddess gives her magical abilities, increased strength, and charisma. She also gives her a silver sash, and sends her to the Lemia Kingdom, where everyone is waiting for her, since the goddess had told them about a hero coming to help them fight the demons. Days pass and Hibiki learns that the demons were forced into the Barren Lands, but for the past decade, they've been advancing, and the Alicia Kingdom has already been defeated, whereas the Lemia and Gritonia kingdoms are still fighting. She knows that Gritonia also has a hero, and the two nations are only working together due to a common enemy, but once the war is over, it could become a problem. She calls the wolf spirit hiding in her sash, and thinks about her teammates she'll be recruiting the next day, as we learn that the king has already selected the court mage Woody, and a knight named Verda. The next day, we meet Navel, who's also known as the silver-haired ogre, as she looks at Hibiki, finding her unsuitable for battle, so she decides to leave, but she's stopped by Woody. Hibiki interrupts them and asks Navel to be her teacher, but Navel isn't interested. Hibiki convinces her by saying if she joins their party, she can be on the front line and can kill all the demons, so Navel ends up accepting. Hibiki's group is asked to escort the priestess of Laurel named Chia, but on her way, she's attacked by mana-eating monsters called kobolds. The priestess creates a barrier around her, and the group goes to fight the kobolds, but Hibiki has never killed before, and she feels nervous. They attack, but Hibiki hesitates to kill the monster, because he begs her to spare him and he uses this opportunity to call his friends. She blames herself for the trouble, but upon seeing her friends struggling, she gathers the courage and starts fighting. The group follows her lead and defeats all the kobolds, so Chia wishes to join their party, but they think it'll cause problems with Laurel. Chia cuts off her hair and asks them to allow her to join them, otherwise, her nation will think they did something to her. Hibiki finds her threat senseless and she just ruined her hair, but Chia thinks it would have disturbed her while fighting. Navel and Hibiki joke about how they should also cut their hair. However, Chia mentions that they're strong and don't need this, but Hibiki finds Chia impressive and wishes to learn magic from her. The newly formed group starts defeating the demons, but when they face Mio in her spider form, they struggle against her. Mio's skin is too strong, and none of their attacks work on her, but Navel keeps attacking and manages to cut off one of her legs, but it regenerates instantly. Navel is about to be eaten, but Hibiki saves her and tells Chia to heal her. They're all defeated by Mio, and only Hibiki remains, who manages to damage one of Mio's eyes, but passes out. She wakes up in her room and is happy that no one died during their battle, but this is her first defeat, so she thanks Mio for the experience, and vows to defeat her the next time they meet. In Makoto's old world, we see a boy named Tomoki, who has a miserable life and wishes to live in another world with superpowers. He goes to sleep, and when he wakes up, he finds the goddess standing before him. She asks for his help, and grants him magic and a
I need to get some
strong body,
food.
as well as an
I
eye
will
that
be
can
right
charm
back.
others, along with flying shoes and the ability to become immortal at night. He isn't happy with his appearance, so she changes it and sends him to Gritonia, where the second princess of the Gritonian Empire, Lily Flaunt, greets him. Lily introduces him to Genebia, a royal guard, and he's surprised, since he's never seen a female knight. She considers him rude, but starts blushing when he stares into her eyes. Lily thinks something is wrong, and takes Tomoki to measure his level. She learns that Tomoki has a magic eye, and she tells the doctor to make sure that the royal family is immune to its effects. Later on, Tomoki is introduced to Yukinatsu, an alchemist, who tells him that she doesn't make medicines, but is skilled in making golems. Tomoki gets excited by this, which charms her, and she invites him to her room, but Lily stops her. Tomoki walks around the castle and he finds a dragon summoner named Mora. He gets excited by her dragon and wonders if she lives with her family here. But she says that Lily brought her to the castle after their village was attacked by demons. He apologizes to her and she says it's fine, but she's also charmed by his eye and asks him to marry her. At night, Tomoki tells Lily he wants to form a party with the three girls, and Lily says they already like him, so it won't be a problem. She thinks he still can't control his magic eye, while Tomoki wonders if everyone likes him just because of his powers. He wants to know what Lily thought of him when they first met, and she thinks he's a great hero, so it's natural that everyone likes him. She kisses him and they spend the night together, as we learn Lily is willing to do anything to defeat the demons. Lily tells Tomoki that Gritonia and Limia are preparing to launch a joint attack on Fort Stella, and he shows interest in meeting the Limia Kingdom's hero. Lily mentions their hero is gorgeous, but he assures her he's happy with her. On the other hand, Navel tells Hibiki about their plans to fight the demons, but Hibiki doesn't look happy, so Navel wonders if she's thinking about Gritonia's hero, and Hibiki tells her that she's interested in him, since they're from the same place and are almost the same age. The two nations meet, and Lily reveals they got reinforcements from the King of Ion, but received less support from Laurel, and Hibiki thinks their relationship with Laurel isn't good because of Chia. Lily says that even after this setback, they outnumber the demons, and once they receive the goddess's blessing, their advantage will further increase. Hibiki asks why they're fighting at night, and Tomoki tells her they're used to it, but she mentions that Limia isn't good at fighting in the dark. Tomoki wonders if Limia has anything useful to offer, but he mentions that this fight is like a mid-boss battle, which they should easily win with the goddess's blessing. She wonders if they met in their previous life, and he says no, but when she mentions that a model her friend liked had the same name as him, he gets angry and tells her that they're two different people. She apologizes for upsetting him, and he asks what level she's at, so she reveals she's level 430, but Tomoki says he's over 600, which makes her realize that he's trying to one-up her. At night, Navel wonders why Hibiki came to this world, and she explains how she was born into a good family and wanted to experience challenges in her life. Navel can't believe Hibiki is going to war because she couldn't even kill a kobold at first, but Hibiki says that this time she has a friend to watch her back. Tomoki asks for the goddess's blessing as they prepare for battle, whereas a demon commander, Rona, is told they're about to be attacked. The war begins, and Hibiki feels something isn't right because they easily defeat their enemies, so she tells Chia and Woody to put a barrier around them in case they fall into a trap. They reach the fort's gate where Rona activates a magic circle, making everyone fall into a hole, but Tomoki uses his flying shoes to escape, and when Rona attacks him using ice magic, he uses the divine spear to block her attack, and his party also escapes thanks to the replica shoes made by Yukinatsu. He asks Mora to summon her dragon Nagi, which they ride to enter the fort. A demon commander appears to fight them, and Tomoki attacks without hesitation, blowing up the demon's arm, but the demon considers him rude for starting the fight without introducing himself. Tomoki realizes that the demon won't be defeated in a single attack, and Hibiki arrives to help him. She apologizes to the demon for Tomoki's behavior and introduces herself, and the demon tells them that he's Io the demi-giant. He regenerates his arm, which shocks Hibiki, as his regeneration is on par with the Black Spider. Io removes the goddess's blessing from Tomoki and Hibiki, making them fall to their knees, which makes Tomoki realize that he's no longer immortal at night. He tells everyone to retreat and reminds Hibiki that they're heroes who can't die here, but she decides to stay, and tells him that she won't call someone who only cares for themselves a hero. Io is disappointed that he'll only be fighting Hibiki, but she tells him that she isn't alone, as her party arrives to fight by her side. The goddess is disappointed that the humans weren't successful even after she sent 2 heroes to help them, but she suddenly notices Makoto. Hibiki and the others keep fighting Io and manage to hold until morning, but reality hits Hibiki that she isn't strong enough to defeat him. Rona asks Sophia how things are going, and she tells her that everything is fine, but at that moment they see the goddess's light, and we see how Makoto was summoned. This gives the humans hope and they continue to fight, but they're still on their last legs, so Navel asks Woody to use the magic device, which will allow her to hold back Io while everyone else escapes. He hesitates at first, but decides to use a talisman on her sword and gives her the rose sign. Navel attacks Io and manages to cut him, which surprises Hibiki, so Navel tells her she's using a special catalyst, but Verta notices the rose sign on her neck and realizes what's happening. Navel cuts off one of Io's hands, who's surprised that the people of this world know spells that he's never seen before. Navel is also surprised that they haven't managed to defeat even one demon commander, but Io assures her he's the strongest demon on this battlefield. Navel slashes Io's neck, which impresses him since he didn't think he would have to use his full strength. He activates his second phase, and Navel calls out Woody, who transports everyone else away. Hibiki tells him to stop, but Verta holds her back and reveals that the rose sign gives its users great power in exchange for their lives. Io says he's going after Hibiki, since Navel can't fight anymore, but she's still not ready to give up and says she won't die a worthless death, and she'll also continue living in her friend's memories. He punches her, but she stabs his hand and uses the death reward spell that burns them both to dust. On the other hand, Tomoki wonders if he should have fought with Hibiki, but Lily says he made the right choice because he symbolizes hope for the people of Gritania. We see that Io is still alive, and Rona tells him about Sophia's defeat, thinking that whoever the goddess summoned to face her must have been a monster. Back in the present, Mio plans on going to the port town of Karan to find seaweed and kelp, which are commonly used in the Japanese dishes that Makoto likes, whereas Tomo learns that a lake appeared where Makoto fought Sophia, so she wants to investigate it. Mio says they'll be alone for a while, but Tomo tells her that Makoto and Shiki have reached Rotsgard, and once things calm down, they'll return to the demi-plane. Shiki sees all the shops in Rotsgard and thinks business must be competitive here, and Makoto tells him to start gathering information. They come across a girl surrounded by men. The girl tries to leave, but a man pushes her, and Makoto tells him to stop, but since he can't speak their language they ignore his writing, so he tells Shiki to talk with them. Shiki tries to talk some sense into them, but when they don't behave, Makoto thinks that if Mio and Tomo were here, they would have wanted to kill them, but since he's with Shiki, he thinks he won't have that problem, but Shiki gets mad at their attitude. The men tell them to stay away, as they need to talk with the girl, but Shiki says he will allow them to live if they leave, which makes Makoto realize he's picking a fight on purpose. The men use wind magic and start floating, but Makoto wonders why they're not attacking. Shiki uses earth magic and sends them up into the sky, but Makoto removes his spell, and he thinks Makoto will soon become a master at counterspelling. Makoto asks the girl to run away, but she says she didn't ask for his help, so Makoto tells her that he doesn't expect anything in exchange for his help. She realizes he's not like the other men, and tells him that she's a waitress at the Gotetsu restaurant, and she'll properly thank them if they visit the place. Shiki finds the girl rude, but Makoto understands why she would be suspicious of a stranger saving her. They notice the men still floating, so Makoto tells Shiki to help them. But Shiki drops them to the ground and thinks they shouldn't have gotten involved, and Makoto says he got curious after seeing the girl's eyes. Makoto tells Shiki that the academy's entrance exam is in 3 days, and Shiki's surprised that he plans on taking it, but he explains that he needs to enter the academy to get permission for opening the store. Shiki mentions that Makoto isn't taking the new student test, but the teacher employment test, which shocks him since he doesn't know what that is. Shiki explains that it's a test to become a teacher, and tells him that it's written on the documents given by Rembrandt, but we learn that this was mistakenly done by Morris due to his weak eyesight. On the exam day, Makoto wonders if they have any other position he could fill, but his request is denied. The worker makes fun of Makoto's appearance, which makes Shiki angry and he attacks him, but Makoto holds him back and apologizes to the man. A woman arrives and apologizes on behalf of the other employee, and asks Makoto if he wants to take the practical or written test. She notices that he has a recommendation letter from the Rembrandt Company and thinks he must be quite accomplished. Makoto isn't sure what test he should take, but Shiki tells the woman he'll take the practical test, since only a few people manage to pass it. The examinees are told that the exam will last 3 days, and they're asked to go to the testing area. They're given a feather-shaped item that they should use if they want to return, and a bell-shaped item if they want to drop out. Examinees aren't allowed to fight, but they'll be far from each other, so it's unlikely they'll cross paths, and to pass the exam, they must bring back 3 of the orbs flying across the site. Makoto is transported to the testing area, and he uses his investigative Kai to see that there's plenty of food and water. He finds this place a paradise compared to the wasteland he was first dropped in. He sees a red orb, and reading the instructions, he realizes that only specific attacks work on each orb, and if they're attacked in any other way they'll break. Physical attacks work on the red orbs, so he punches it, but to his surprise, it bursts into pieces. He finds a yellow orb, which can only be attacked with magic, so he uses his Brid to attack, but it also shatters. He comes across a blue orb, which can be captured using range attacks, so he uses his bow and arrow, but the result is the same. He isn't sure what he's doing wrong, and wonders if his attacks have too much power. He remembers he's constantly using his strengthening spell, so he removes it and tries to catch a red orb, but fails again. The next day, he learns using his investigative Kai that one of the other examinees is gone, so he decides to hurry up even if it isn't a race. He tries to catch a blue orb by grazing it with the feather end of his arrow, but it suddenly teleports elsewhere. He uses the same technique and finally captures it, but he senses that another examinee has also disappeared, and he wonders if they are passing the test or dropping out. He prepares to catch a yellow orb, so he weakens himself with weakening Kai and reduces the Brid flame to attack, and captures it successfully. Later that night, he senses a new person entering the test, but he's not worried as long as they don't bother him. The next morning, as he wakes up, he's attacked by a man dressed in black, who throws his knives at him, but he blocks them. The man disappears, but Makoto knows he's behind him and tries to get away, but he gets caught. The man tries to stab him, but Makoto grabs his blade and breaks it in half, which cuts his hand, and he realizes that it had poison on it. Makoto asks the man if he's attacking the examinees, and he reveals that he made everyone else leave the test and only Makoto remains. He mentions that he wasn't excited about being hired to threaten him, but will make him pay for breaking his blade. He reveals that his blade was covered in a fast-acting poison, but he's shocked to learn that the poison has been neutralized. Makoto offers to reveal how he neutralized the poison if he tells him who hired him, but the man says he has no contact with his employer. The man realizes he can't move, and Makoto reveals he has temporarily paralyzed him from the neck down. He tells him that his poison didn't work on him because he's immune to it, and he kicks him into the sky. Makoto still can't capture the red orbs since his body continuously releases mana, but he gets an idea to use the back of his knife to attack the orb, and finally manages to capture it. He uses the feather to return to the academy, and the examiner wonders if he also dropped out like the other contestants, but is surprised when he sees that Makoto collected all the orbs. The examiner gets shocked that he caught 3 orbs of different colors when he only asked for 3 of the same color. Makoto tells Shiki that he has been appointed as a temporary instructor, and he wants to go to the Gotetsu restaurant since the next exam won't be for a while. On the other hand, the examiner drinks with a girl at the bar, and reveals that no one was supposed to pass the exam because someone made a request to increase the difficulty, but Makoto still managed to pass, which the girl finds interesting. Makoto gets called to the academy, but he decides to have lunch first and thinks they've been eating at Gotetsu for 5 straight days. The girl they rescued named Luria takes their order, and she finds it odd that instead of sharing a hot pot like the others, they're ordering separately. We see one of the bullies named Alumgand secretly watching them, when he's approached by a girl from the academy, who gives him a magic medicine that'll increase his physical and magical abilities. At the academy, Makoto's informed about the rules for teachers, and although he can promote his business, he's not allowed to exchange money on the academy grounds. He learns that the teachers are paid 10 silver coins per student, and part-time teachers can lecture a maximum of 30 students. Makoto agrees to start teaching soon, but he plans to teach only a few students, which surprises the academy employee since most teachers try to gather more students. One of the full-time teachers named Bright talks to Makoto about his plan for teaching practical skills, and he tells Makoto that his focus is on theory, but he also teaches combat techniques. He offers to send his students to Makoto's class if they're interested, and mentions that this year there are many extraordinary students, with a few being able to cast floating spells and communicate telepathically, which makes Makoto wonder if he's talking about the boys he fought before. Later on, Makoto goes to the library to find material for his lecture, and the librarian asks if she can help him find the books. He wonders if they have books on magic incantation, but as she calls him by his name, he instantly creates a barrier and jumps back. She praises his quick reflexes, but Makoto wonders who she is and how she knows his name. She tells him that she knows every teacher's name, but Makoto doesn't believe her, since the academy has hundreds of teachers. She mentions she heard about him from her sister Luria, and she introduces herself as Eva, but Makoto finds her suspicious. On the other hand, Mio learns how to cook from a girl named Beretta, and she's enjoying her time, but the girl is scared by her knife handling. At the Rotsguard Academy, the students talk about how they're unsure if Makoto is a worthy teacher, but Makoto hears them and realizes that the students aren't taking him seriously, so he tells Shiki that he'll be a strict teacher. The students arrive for their class, and the female students find Shiki handsome, but their views of Makoto are completely opposite. Makoto tells them to pay attention since his class on magic is going to be difficult, but one of the students says that his specialty is with the sword. Makoto learns that no one can use more than one element, so he decides to use Tomo's strategy and calls out everyone for their lack of skills, saying that with the way things are, they'll all end up being third-rate magicians. The students believe it's normal to be skilled in just one element, but Makoto warns them that if their only element fails in battle, they'll be in big trouble, so they should learn at least 3 elements. The students doubt his abilities, so he arranges a practice fight with Shiki to show them what he can do. The students are impressed by Shiki's staff since it contains mana of different elements, but they can't sense any mana from Makoto. The fight begins, and Shiki lunges with a flaming attack, but it does nothing against Makoto's barrier. Shiki continues his attack, and Makoto notes how he has gotten faster, so Shiki thanks his training with Tomo and Mio. Makoto counters with a fire blast, pushing Shiki back, but Makoto is impressed he survived. Shiki uses his earth magic, but Makoto fires a fire arrow that instantly destroys it. The students can't believe what they're watching, and Makoto launches a boulder at Shiki, but he stops it with a counterspell, so Makoto tries shooting a fire and water arrows simultaneously, but Shiki still manages to stop it, crediting the dwarfs who made his staff. They decide to end things, so they both start chanting their incantations. The students are surprised to see Makoto can speak, and wonder how much stronger the chanted spells will be. The two clash, causing a massive explosion, which even injures one of the students, and as the dust settles, we see that Shiki has been defeated. Makoto ends his class, telling them it's their choice if they want to join, but says if they want to become stronger, then they should join his class. Before Makoto leaves, he asks Shiki to heal the girl who got hurt during their battle. He immediately heals her, but her face turns red when he touches her, as she has developed a crush on him. She thinks he must have used an expensive medicine, but Shiki tells her that it's common in their shop. The students have mixed reactions to the battle, with a few being terrified, while the others are impressed by their new instructor. On the other hand, Tomo goes to the lake that was created after Makoto's battle, and questions a man who was present at the time. The man thinks that Makoto was here to punish them, which is why he fired an arrow of punishment to destroy everything. Tomo reads his memories, and after seeing what happened, she thinks about how there's never a dull moment with her master. Makoto's second class starts, and he's surprised to see 5 students show up, whereas Shiki takes their attendance and introduces everyone. There's Masura Casper, who's excellent with his studies, and his parents are connected with the temple. Next is Dinah Severus, who's actually married, and his wife is currently on maternity leave from the academy. The girl is introduced as Abelia Hopley, and there's the aspiring mage Izumo Kusakabe. The final student is Jin Rohan, but he aspires to be a swordsman, so Makoto wonders what he's doing in the class. Izumo wonders how Makoto can chant his incantation when he can't speak, but Makoto tells them he can speak every language except common. The class starts, and Makoto asks them what effects spending mana has on the body. They know that spending half of one's mana causes fatigue, and using all of it may result in loss of consciousness and vomiting, while exceeding your mana limit can even cause death. They wonder why Makoto is asking such a simple question, so he tells them that he wants to test their limits in battle. He warns them that they may get injured, but he has enough mana and stamina recovering medicines for them to buy. He tells them to attack him all at once, but most of them are easily defeated. Only Masura and Jin remain, but Masura uses the last of his mana to heal Jin and passes out. Jin tries to land just one hit, but to no avail, as he's also defeated by Makoto, who tells him not to attack recklessly. After the battle, Makoto tells them it's good for them to know their limits, and he asks them to submit a detailed report on what they learned from the lesson. Meanwhile, Illumined walks around the academy looking at the medicine, but he's shocked to see Makoto there. At night, Makoto tells Shiki that the students have more potential than he thought, and he admits that although he may not be suited to be a teacher, he'll do his best. We see that the assassin who attacked Makoto was hired by Bright, and he tells the assassin to finish the job. Makoto opens his shop in Rotsgard, and wants Eris and Aqua to leave the shop in Sage and start working here, but they're afraid it might upset Mio and Tomo. Makoto convinces them that working here will be easier, since they'll get breaks and won't have a manager constantly criticizing them. We learn that Makoto's facing a unique problem, because a lot of the female students have been proposing to him, thinking that he's rich. Makoto takes out a picture of his parents and thinks this is the ideal kind of marriage, but Eva finds him looking at it and asks who they are, so he tells her that he owes them a great deal. He thinks the students have a strange view on marriage, so she tells him that most of the students in this academy are children of merchants, and they don't think love is necessary for marriage, which makes Makoto think that Tomo and Mio are better than them since they aren't after his money. On the other hand, Lime reports to Tomo that someone fought the dragon Laika before the Battle of Fort Stella. He wonders if Tomo has found anything about the ring that removes the goddess's blessing, but she hasn't, and she tells him to stop talking because someone followed him. A group of travelers knock on their door, revealing that they came here because they heard about a strange weapon, and as the door opens, we see that the travelers are Tomoki and his friends. They introduce themselves, and Lime realizes that Lily is the second princess of Gritonia, and Tomoki is their hero. Lily says that they came here to study the lake, but she's interrupted by Tomoki, who is fascinated by Tomo's katana and wishes to see it. She gives it to him and tries to explain something, but he doesn't care about what she has to say. He tries to unsheath it and fails, so Tomo tells them that only she can use it, which shocks him since he can wield any weapon. Tomo takes back the sword and unsheaths it, impressing everyone, and Lily wishes to buy it, but Tomo reminds her that only she can use it. Lily tries to pressure her by revealing her identity as a princess, but it has no effect on Tomo, who refuses to be a part of their team. Tomo realizes they want her blade so they can use it to make more weapons. She tells them that she isn't going to sell her katana, so Tomoki uses his magic eye on Lime and he offers to give them his sword. Tomoki also tries to convince Tomo, but she's unaffected by his eye and says she's disappointed after meeting Britannia's hero. Tomoki again tries to charm her, but she doesn't like his intentions and says she belongs only to Makoto. Mora realizes that Tomo is a dragon, so she tries to use her power to control her, but it doesn't work, as Tomo cancels her spell, which also removes Tomoki's magic from Lime. Lime calls Tomoki a goon, which makes him mad, and he attacks him with his spear. Tomo calls him trash, and looking into her eyes reminds him of the bullies from his previous life. He tries to attack her, but she uses her mist to teleport them away. She says she'll act as if they never met, and warns them that if they act foolishly again, she won't hesitate to kill Tomoki, but since she's the only one he hasn't been able to charm, he's determined to find a way to out her. Lime feels ashamed that he willingly gave his sword to Tomoki, but Tomo asks him to become her servant, and he immediately accepts, saying that he doesn't want to feel powerless again. Meanwhile, Mio collects seaweed scraps, but is suddenly attacked by Hibiki's wolf spirit. Mio is about to kill him, but Hibiki stops her and apologizes for her spirit's actions. Hibiki offers to help Mio with her injury, but Mio says she's fine. Hibiki still wants to make things right, so Mio asks her to help her choose the best seagrass pieces. Hibiki asks her if she's talking about the seaweed and kelp, and Mio is excited since she can tell the difference between the two of them. Later on, Hibiki reveals that she was traveling to Saich to buy weapons, but Mio's more interested in getting cooking tips from her. Woody thinks about Hibiki's deep emotional scars, and how she has been hiding her true feelings since Navel's death. Mio senses a creature coming their way, so she decides to check whether Hibiki's strong enough to take care of it. As they come face to face with the creature, Hibiki asks Chie to make a defensive barrier, and she tells Woody to provide them with support. Verta attacks the creature, but his sword starts breaking, and Mio thinks that they aren't that bad, but are poorly equipped. Verta thinks he has to fill in for Navel's absence and he attacks recklessly, which breaks his sword and he gets injured. Hibiki sees his blood and remembers Navel, which makes her freeze up, so she asks Mio to help them. Mio says it's their fault for not knowing their strength, so she steps in and easily defeats the creature. She asks them to help her harvest materials from the monster, but it's still alive and attacks Mio from behind. The attack tears Mio's kimono, which makes her furious because Makoto had praised her in it, so she completely blows it up, and the party can't believe what they're seeing. But Mio suddenly knocks them all out, and Hibiki's wolf emerges. Mio realizes that it recognizes her from their previous fight, but mentions how she's different now and means no harm. Hibiki wakes up in a room with a letter from Mio, saying that she brought them to Saich, and asks her to visit Makoto's shop once she wakes up. They go to the shop where they meet Mio, and Hibiki tells her that she'll accept any criticism from the battle since she had to ask for help, but Mio just wants her to teach her how to cook. Woody mentions they came to Saich to buy equipment and train in the wasteland, but Mio tells them that they aren't strong enough to survive there. Hibiki tells her they have to get stronger, and Biren offers to make equipment, but while they're being made, Hibiki should help Mio with her cooking. Mio thinks that the equipment doesn't guarantee their survival, and she also can't learn to make broth in just 3 days, so Biren proposes to send Toa and her party to ensure their survival. Meanwhile in Rotsgard, Shiki tells Makoto that Tomo wants him to return to the demi-plane because she has a lot to report, and in their absence, the forest ogres will take care of the shop. Makoto is a little worried, but decides to trust Shiki and returns to the demi-plane. Makoto wonders why it's so hot even though it's night, and Shiki mentions the weather has been changing irregularly in the demi-plane. They go to Makoto's newly constructed house, where everyone welcomes him back. Mio serves him a dish that he finds tasty, which makes her happy, and Tomo reveals that Mio was the one who cooked most of the food for the party, so Makoto praises her cooking, and she promises to serve him even more delicious food in the future. Mio leaves in excitement, and Emma reveals that she's going to Saich where she's learning from an adventurer. Tomo reports to Makoto that during her investigation, she met the Gritania Empire's hero, and Makoto wonders what he was like, but she thinks he was trash. She mentions that Tomoki overestimates his abilities, and is easily consumed by his desires, which makes her think he might go to war with the other kingdoms after defeating the demons. She also mentions that she read the princess's mind and saw an image of a firearm. Shiki thinks that Tomoki must have told them about it, but Makoto doesn't consider them to be as strong as magic. Tomo mentions she considered killing them, but Makoto tells her just to watch them for the time being. We learn Shiki told Tomo everything about their situation in Rothsgard, so she teases Makoto for being so popular at the academy. Makoto still wonders why it's so hot in the demi-plane, and Tomo thinks it's due to the mist gates that he has been opening. She reveals that the last place Makoto opens a gate affects the weather in the demi-plane, but he's confused since it was cool at the academy. Shiki thinks that the weather at the gate's location affects the demi-plane in a more complicated way, so Tomo decides to look into it. Meanwhile, Hibiki tells Mio that she has been asked to return to Limia, and even though Mio wants to learn more from her, she understands her situation. She thanks Mio because they wouldn't have survived in the wasteland if it wasn't for her, and Hibiki asks Mio to come with her, but she refuses her offer, saying that the only thing that matters to her is Makoto. Emma shows Makoto their new plants, and says the harvesting has increased thanks to Shiki's instructions, but he says he just told everyone what could be accomplished by using earth magic based on Makoto's knowledge. Makoto is happy that they won't have to worry about food anymore, and even though he's concerned about the weather, he still wants to increase the population of the demi-plane. Makoto meets with Eld, who shows him a piece that Mio brought back from the monster that damaged her kimono. Eld reveals that it belongs to a monster that consumed a wind spirit, which is shocking since monsters don't usually do this, so someone did it deliberately, and Shiki confesses that he was the one who created the monster for an experiment before he met Makoto. He fed the monster's weakened spirits, hoping they would turn into one, but he never saw the results. Makoto meets the species selected by Mio and the others for moving into the demi-plane. There are representatives from all three species, but Makoto thinks it's a bit arrogant to summon them instead of visiting them. Emma mentions that they're the ones trying to move in, so it's normal that they are the ones to come, and she also tells Makoto to start acting like the master of the demi-plane. Makoto meets Kaken, the leader of the Wingkin species, and his advisor Shona. They fly in front of Makoto, which makes Emma angry, because they seem to be looking down on Makoto, so she tells them to get down. Makoto thinks they're impressive, considering they live in a place even more remote than the mountain where Tomo lived, but they say that even though their area is remote, it still has plenty of resources. Makoto wonders if they've been protecting their village alone, and they say they were able to do so because they're good fighters. They wonder if they'll be treated the same as everyone else and given a good job, and when Makoto says yes, they become emotional. He meets with Tomo's Gorgons next, and Makoto asks them to take off their masks, but they explain how their eyes can turn people to stone, and Makoto recalls how they were called Medusas in his old life. He assures them that he'll be okay, but they are afraid he won't be able to handle it since they can't sense any mana from him, which makes Emma angry. They remove their masks, turning Makoto's desk into stone. He thinks their eyes must be troublesome for them, and they even mention how they turn their food into stone. He learns that their species has only females, and they reproduce by absorbing the energy from males of other species. He finds this scary, and explains that if they join the demi-plane, he won't be able to provide them with males to reproduce with. They're okay with this, but worry that their eyes will affect the other residents, so Makoto tells them not to worry, saying he can create glasses with the same effect as their masks. They ask him if he's sure about letting them live there, because once they turn something into stone, they can't turn it back. But Makoto assures them that he has a solution, and he's able to restore his desk back to normal, but it quickly turns back to stone. He realizes that he needs to apply petrification resistance, so he tries again, and this time it stays normal. The Gorgons are happy seeing this, since they thought they would always have to wear a mask. Makoto then meets with the Elemera, who are attempting to leave their forest after being discovered by a pack of Raizu. Makoto thinks they are fairies, but they say there's something between fairies and spirits, and are capable of commanding low-level spirits. Emma is annoyed by their behavior, but Makoto sees potential in them since they can gather information. He's about to invite them to the demi-plane, but Emma opposes it, thinking they will be too problematic. At night, Makoto meets with Tomo and Shiki to discuss the two species that passed the interview. Shiki decides to start working on the glasses for the Gorgons, while Tomo plans to create a training schedule for the Wingkin. Mio arrives with another dish that includes mayonnaise, which makes Makoto think about his old world, while Shiki imagines making a mayonnaise hot pot. It starts raining in the demiplane, and Tomo believes her theory that Makoto's mist gates are causing the weather changes seems correct. Mio finds it hard to store ingredients due to the changing climate, and Shiki notes that the demiplane could be hit by storms or droughts at any moment. Makoto thinks they need regularity in the weather, so Tomo decides to look for places that experience all the weather conditions. Makoto prepares to head back to Rothsgard, which makes everyone sad, but he promises to return when he gets free time. He gets back to Rothsgard, and Aqua and Eris give him all the earnings from the shop. Shiki thinks they should hire more employees since their business has been good, and Makoto gives them bananas as a bonus. At the academy, Makoto wonders what paperwork they need to submit to take their class, but Shiki reveals he has already taken care of everything. Bright interrupts them and asks Makoto for 10 healing potions, saying they are great, so Makoto tells him to come to the shop, because they have many other products. Makoto is shocked by all the letters he received while he was gone, and Shiki says he'll take care of them, so Makoto just asks to see the important documents. There is an application from 3 students to join his class, but he's shocked when he sees their names. His class begins, and Makoto asks the new students to introduce themselves. There's Sif Rembrandt, who is on leave from the academy due to illness. She excels in attack magic, particularly with earth and fire elements, and has the protection of spirits due to her earth affinity. Next is her sister Yuno Rembrandt, who's skilled in physical combat and is capable of using enhancement magic. Makoto recalls how they were both cursed and is glad to see they have fully recovered. The last student is Karen Force, who transferred from the Husk Royal Academy and specializes in the water element. Makoto wants everyone to get along and tells the Rembrandt sisters that even though he's friends with their father, he won't go easy on them. The students are confused by how the sisters are acting and think they are just pretending to be nice. Makoto sees that the students are acting suspiciously, and Shiki tells him that the sisters have a bad reputation because they boast about their wealth and their looks, but Makoto thinks they don't seem that way. Makoto tells the new students to stay put while the rest follow him, and he reveals that he's going to summon a creature for them to fight, which makes them worried. He summons a lizard man, but tells him not to use his breath attack and to only fight at 20% of his strength. Makoto returns to the other 3 and tells them to attack him so that he can tell them about their flaws. He tells them to start, and Yuno starts shooting her arrows, while the others begin chanting their spells. The arrows fail to penetrate Makoto's shield, so he advises Yuno to infuse them with mana and strengthen her physical body. Sith launches a fire blast, and Karen freezes Makoto, but he remains unaffected. Makoto tells Sith to concentrate on intensity and casting faster, while Karen should prioritize power and duration over speed. Yuno fires another arrow, but Makoto burns it before it can reach him. He criticizes her sloppy enhancement, telling her she focuses too much on firing a single power shot, which makes her bow handling careless, so he tells her to use her spear next. He tells them that this will be an unforgettable loss for them, but it's better for them to experience it as soon as possible. Meanwhile, the lizard man swings his sword towards the students, and the force from it blows everyone back. Izumo uses an incantation to allow everyone to walk freely in the wind, so Abelia uses this opportunity to shoot a fire arrow. The lizard man dodges, but when he's in the air, Jin tries to slash him, but the lizard man knocks him away. The fights end, and Makoto tells the students to submit a report about where they should improve, but he tells Karen to come with him. The students are depressed by how easily they were defeated, but Shiki assures them that Makoto will never give them obstacles they can't overcome. He tells them that Makoto has high hopes for them, which is why he's harsh, and Shiki's jealous of them because it's been a while since Makoto expected anything from him. Meanwhile, Makoto talks with Karen about how she's too strong to be a student, and she reveals she was a military mage in her kingdom. Makoto has already looked into her past, but he wonders if she's even the real Karen, which makes her laugh. Makoto asks her what the demons want with the academy, and reveals that even though she doesn't have horns, he can tell by her skin color and eyes that she's a demon. Karen still tries to put on an innocent face and charm Makoto, but he tells her that it doesn't work on him. She praises him for seeing through her so quickly, and reveals that the real Karen is dead, but it was her own allies who killed her. She wonders why he isn't angry after finding out that she's a demon, and he tells her that he doesn't discriminate, so he'll let her go if they can come to an agreement. He wonders what her real name is, but she doesn't answer and prepares to kill him, but Shiki arrives and reveals her as Rona, one of the 4 generals of the demon army. They go to Gotetsu, and Rona says she wants to know about Makoto's trading company. She knows he has another shop in Ion, and wonders if he's their agent, but he tells her they're a neutral party. Makoto asks her why she infiltrated the academy, and she tells him not to be wary of her, but Shiki tells him not to lower his guard. She thinks they should get to know each other better, but Shiki tells her that if she sleeps with Makoto, she'll regret it for the rest of her life. Makoto again asks her why she came to the academy, so she reveals that she wants to stop the humanoid experiments that are secretly conducted in the city. Lime comes to Rothsgard to help Makoto, so he tells Lime to find the people responsible for the human trafficking trade happening in the city, and reveals that the Assassin Guild is involved. Makoto asks Aqua and Eris to help Lime, and they are hesitant to work overtime, but end up agreeing after Makoto offers them more bananas. Shiki tells Makoto to doubt everything Rona says, and Makoto wonders how he knows her. Shiki mentions they used to exchange information, but she used him several times and got him into trouble. She's loyal to the Demon King since she owes him a great debt, and Shiki thinks that even though she isn't as strong as Mio, she's a more cunning version of her. They go to meet the Rembrandt sisters, and Shiki mentions that getting an audience with them took a lot of effort. Makoto apologizes to them for not visiting when they were ill, and congratulates them on fully recovering. They notice Makoto behaving differently from how he was during his lecture, and he explains that teaching brings out his strict side. They thank Makoto for healing them, and ask if they can do anything for him, but he tells them not to feel indebted to him. On the other hand, Lime's investigation leads him to an abandoned building on the academy grounds, but he senses someone near him, so he draws his sword, but the man smiles. Eris and Aqua tell Makoto that they lost contact with Lime, and the last place they could reach him was near the academy. Shiki believes Rona has betrayed them, but Makoto wants to be sure before making any assumptions. Meanwhile, Lime and Eva are imprisoned in a dungeon, and he apologizes for getting her involved. We learn that when Lime came across the mysterious individual, he tried contacting Makoto, but the man blocked his telepathy. Seeing no other option, Lime attacked, but the man easily defeated him, and after he left, Eva tried to help Lime, but she also got caught. Lime says he works for Makoto's company, but she thinks he's more like a bodyguard. He asks if she wants to escape, but she says that their attackers are from a powerful organization and have connections in the academy, so it won't make a difference if she escapes. She also mentions that he was already beaten, but he tells her not to worry because the man isn't there, revealing he marked the man during the fight, so he knows his location. Eva mentions that if he manages to rescue her, she will give him valuable information, and she also offers a reward if they take down the organization. Lime reveals his hidden sickle and uses it to break out of the cell, but on their way out, they are surprised to see the experiments that have been done on humans and demi-humans. Eva believes their goal is to increase combat and magical abilities, whereas Lime decides to kill everyone who was experimented on to put them out of their misery. Meanwhile, Shiki and Makoto inspect the place where Lime disappeared, and Shiki senses a dragon's presence, making him think they aren't dealing with demons, since Rona doesn't have a good relationship with dragons. Makoto wonders if it could be Lancer and Sophia, which makes Shiki excited to avenge Makoto for his battle with them. Lime suddenly appears, which makes Shiki disappointed since he didn't get to fight, while Makoto is surprised to see Eva. Makoto reads a detailed report of the incident, and he becomes interested in the man who defeated Lime. Shiki tells him that Eva wants to tell him something, and Makoto instructs him to meet Rona and learn about the people who are helping the organization from within the academy. Eva wants to fulfill her part of the deal, and she agrees to give them information, but the reward will come after they destroy the organization. She remembers Makoto looking at a picture of his parents, and says that she knows who they are. She reveals that his father was a noble, and his mother was a high-ranking priestess. They were supposed to get married in Kelneon, but were forced to leave before the wedding. Makoto wonders why they were forced to leave, but Eva doesn't know, because the records were destroyed in a demon invasion 10 years ago, so he wonders how she knows about his parents, and she reveals that she and Luria are also from Kelneon. They managed to escape during the invasion, but the people called them cowards for leaving. Because of their past, they're not allowed to talk about their families and were constantly harassed. At one point, they even thought about ending their lives, but they realized it wouldn't solve anything, so they decided to try to reclaim the lost lands of her family. She started investigating the organization, hoping she could use them to accomplish her goal, but she got caught when she ran into Lime. At night, Makoto wonders about the strength of the organization and considers the possibility of them joining the war. He suddenly senses someone nearby, and Lime warns him that the man who defeated him is approaching them. Makoto instructs Lime to get Shiki, but he insists he's ready to fight. Mio and Tomo suddenly appear through a mist gate and advise Lime to stay back. The man arrives and introduces himself as the guild master of the Adventurers Guild. He apologizes for his actions towards Lime, which surprises Makoto and the others. They offer him tea, but he asks for fruit, which frustrates Mio, but Makoto tells her to fulfill his request. Makoto wonders what he's doing here, but he asks Makoto to speak, since he is aware of his abilities. Makoto gets curious about his identity, but before he can answer, Tomo reveals that his name is Ludo, and he's one of the greater dragons. Ludo tells Tomo to mind her manners since he wants to talk with Makoto, but she tells him she won't let him deceive her master. He gets close to Makoto, but Tomo draws her sword and asks about when he became a man. He says he got bored of living as a woman, and they get ready to
Alright, I am back and I got me some food.
the Adventurers Guild. On the other hand, Rona decides to help with the investigation. but
Made me
tells
some
Shiki
pasta
to use her methods. Since
with
she's already
some
accomplished her original objective,
Asiago
she wishes to
cheese
see Makoto's true power.
and chicken
Meanwhile, Ludo tells everyone that he was the one who formed the
and a
guild
bunch of
1,000 years ago,
spices.
hoping it would spread throughout the world and help solve problems in the communities. He also made the guild members get licenses that show their level, and reveals that the idea of levels came from the video games of Makoto's world. Tomo wonders why he made the guild, and he explains that it was to keep the humans who had grown arrogant due to the goddess's blessing in check. Makoto thinks the guild was to encourage human growth, but Ludo says that people join the guild because of ambition, and they are eventually destroyed by their own desires, which automatically thins out the human population. He reveals that the highest level in the guild is 65,535, which he chose because of a romantic speech his master gave, but Makoto thinks about how the number appears in the old game, since it's the highest number in 16-bit programming. Makoto asks how his master could know about video games if he came 1,000 years ago, so Ludo explains that time flows differently in the different worlds. Makoto wonders about his chances of returning to his old world, and Ludo explains that at his current mana level, there's a 1 in 10 million chance of success. Ludo prepares to leave, but Tomo decides to see him off since she doesn't trust him. As they leave, Tomo asks Ludo if it's true that humans from Makoto's world die in 100 years, but he says that only a few of them reach that age. Tomo says that Makoto means everything to her, and if he died, the world wouldn't interest her anymore. She wonders if Makoto will try to go to his old world, and Ludo thinks he won't be able to abandon her, but he might change in the future and become a being that can freely travel between both worlds. Shiki thinks they can't trust Rona, but Makoto is impressed by her, since she managed to find some people connected with the organization. Rona tells Makoto that she's leaving the academy since she has accomplished her goals, and she will notify the academy of Karen's death, but Makoto wants her to just say she's leaving due to a family emergency. She warns him not to trust Shiki and the Forest Ogres, and before she leaves, she gives him an incantation that he can use to contact her, in case he ever wants to work with the demons. Makoto shows the incantation to Tomo and Mio, and Tomo thinks they can use this to learn about the cursed items that remove the goddess's blessing. He suddenly realizes that even though Lime is a human, he can talk normally with him, so he asks Tomo about it, and she reveals that she has made him a part of her family by giving him her blood. Tomo thinks they should wait to catch someone big in the organization, but Makoto wants to settle it quickly, since Eva and Luria's safety is at stake. Tomo and Mio ask Makoto to let them take care of it, but he wants to do it on his own, which makes Tomo remember what Ludo said about Makoto changing due to a certain event. Later on, Makoto captures Bright, who threatens him, saying that the organization will make him pay, but Makoto tells him that he knows how Bright has been abandoned since they didn't try to rescue him. Makoto wonders why Bright is defying the goddess, so he mentions that many wars have begun due to the goddess, so it was inevitable that an organization like theirs would appear. He believes that the goddess is not fit to rule the world, and that humans can survive without her. Makoto asks him why they use demi-humans in their experiment, but he says that they are naturally the best test subjects. Makoto decides he has heard enough, so he decides to end things. At the academy, the students discuss how the Rembrandt sisters have been acting friendly lately, but one of them mentions how they have been going after the girls who approached Makoto. They wonder if Bright left because of them, while Ilum feels sick because he got addicted to the magic medicine. Makoto's students talk about how Karen had to leave the academy, so the Rembrandt sisters will now join them in their class where they fight the Lizard Man. They know that the Lizard Man is much stronger than them, so they make strategies to defeat him, but in their next fight, Makoto brings another Lizard Man, which makes their plans go to waste, and they are easily defeated again. The students ask Makoto to teach them more during the summer break, and Makoto asks the Rembrandt sisters if they also want to stay, because their father wants them to return home, but they say they also want to learn from him. He asks Shiki about their schedule, but Shiki mentions he has time to take one class a week.
What up?
So Makoto agrees to
Yeah.
take the class on the
Streaming?
The Rembrandt sisters return home during the
Package?
second half of the summer break. On
For
the
me?
other hand, Eva promises to give Makoto a piece of her family's land for protecting her once she reclaims Kelmon, but Makoto refuses her offer and instead asks her to recommend him a coach.
Fuck is
The
this?
students fight the Lizard Man again, and they finally manage to defeat him, but Shiki hears over them and tells them to get ready for round two. The Lizard Man casts a support spell, and Jin attacks him with
Oh,
his sword, but the
okay,
Lizard
I know what
Man
that is.
uses his tail to knock him back, and he freezes everyone else. Meanwhile, the other students are fighting the other lizard named Zwei, where Masura attacks him with his sword, while Sif starts chanting an incantation. The Lizard Man suddenly gets stronger and is about to defeat Masura, but Dinah throws his sword at him as a distraction. The Lizard Man
Word.
knocks him away and throws his weapon at Masura, while Sif tries to hit him with her fire magic, but he dodges it and defeats her as well. After the fight, Makoto apologizes for the Lizard Man going out of control and reveals that they have been using only a tenth of their strength to fight. The students are shocked, but wonder why he used more strength at the end, so Makoto tells them that he made a mistake when introducing Zwei, revealing that she's a girl, and she got angry when Masura called her a jerk. After the students leave, Shiki tells Makoto that he has shown them a place to increase their level since they are all part of the Adventurers Guild. The students go to the area he suggested, and they manage to defeat the monsters and level up, crediting their improvement to Makoto's lessons, whereas Abelia thinks about how she's in love with Shiki and wants to become his wife. The next day, the students encounter a demi-dragon, and Abelia informs them that they need 10 party members at level 90 to face it. Jin tells Azumo to use his wind magic to boost their speed, but the dragon lets out a roar, causing everyone to freeze in place. The dragon prepares to breathe fire at them, but Eris suddenly shows up and defeats the dragon instantly. They wonder who she is, but she insults them all and disappears. Makoto visits Ludo and asks to learn how to use more mana at one time, but Ludo tells him that no one can increase their mana. Makoto reveals that his mana has been increasing, so Ludo warns Makoto that if the organization finds out about this, they might start experimenting on him. He also wants to know how Makoto has been doing it, but Makoto just says he practices drawing his bow every day. Ludo gives him a training manual, but he doesn't know if the methods will be effective. Makoto meets with Eva, and she recommends a book on the use of mana, but thinks that only an expert can appreciate the unique theories in it. During the summer break, Makoto returns to the demi-plane, where time passes quickly. Emma apologizes for keeping him busy, but he knows he'll return to the academy once the break ends, so he's happy to spend time with everyone. She tells Makoto that he has to do a mock battle with the Wingkin, who have never lost a match against the other species, so Makoto thinks they must be strong. The battle begins, and the Wingkin come flying out of the forest, so Makoto decides to start easy with a few shots, but they all hit, and Makoto seems disappointed. The second wave comes in, and they fly above the clouds to obstruct his vision, but he uses his investigative Kai to see them and shoots them down again. He can't believe they were undefeated, and thinks the other species must have had trouble since they are flying. Kaken arrives flying on his Lieutenant Shona, and Makoto remembers that the Wingkin have the power to transform. He fires the same blasts as before to see their reaction, and he's happy to see that they have made a barrier protecting them. They start using wind enhancement and dive straight towards Makoto, but he grabs Shona and slams her to the ground. Kaken tries to attack, but he deflects it and shoots a warning blast at his feet, making him surrender. Makoto tells them that they rely too much on their flight, so they should try to develop new attack patterns, or else the other species will soon defeat them. Kaken asks Makoto to allow them to participate in the demi-plane ranking and to help with building. Makoto tells them that anyone can participate in the ranking, but he can't allow them to help build, since their combat abilities aren't suitable for the job. At night, Makoto reads Ludo's training methods, but they're too difficult for him to understand. He goes to an open field and follows the instructions, releasing a huge amount of mana while continuously firing his magic. He suddenly feels a strange sensation, and the next thing he knows, it's already morning, as Tomo and Mio wake him up. They return to their house, where Mio serves him a delicious breakfast. Tomo tries to take some of his food, but Mio stops her, saying she should only eat what was given to her. Several days pass, and Makoto has learned how to use the mana outside his body, so he continues training. He also found an incantation in the book Eva recommended that might materialize his mana. So he uses his concealing kai to hide his mana and starts chanting the incantation, which converts his mana into a physical form. The mana covers his entire body, and to check how hard it is, he tackles a tree and easily destroys it, which makes him think he will be able to fight anyone without getting hurt. The next day, Tomo tells Makoto that everyone wants to show him how much they have improved, and to do so, she dug out a giant boulder from a mountain, and Shiki casts a spell on it, so that it can show their power levels. Emma and Agar step up on behalf of the Highland Orcs. She buffs him with her magic, and he uses his hammer to strike the boulder, earning them 78 points. The Mist Lizards are up next, but they shoot their attacks into the sky, which confuses Makoto, but Tomo explains that they're showing the Wingkin that they can now hit targets in the sky. The lizards aim at the boulder, and they score 68 points. The Elder Dwarves score 70 points, while the Alki gets 65, but the Gorgons don't earn any points, since their eyes have no effect on the boulder. The Wingkin mark the boulder and attack it from the skies. Their hits are accurate, but are also weak, earning them only 20 points. Aqua and Eris represent the Forest Ogres. They create an ice barrier around the boulder, and tell everyone to break through it if they can, but no one succeeds. Tomo considers the barrier almost perfect, but Makoto notices a flaw, so he digs under the boulder and dispels the barrier, earning them 50 points. Mio also wants to try, so she makes a hero suit she saw in Makoto's memories, but it receives no points from the boulder. Shiki is the final person to try, and he transforms his staff into a sword. Tomo notes that the Elder Dwarves made it for him, calling it the Dragon Slayer. He slashes at the boulder, and he's able to split it in half. Makoto is impressed, and he also decides to show off his new ability. He unleashes his mana, converting it to its physical form, leaving everyone amazed. Shiki calls it Mana Matter, and Makoto punches the boulder, completely shattering it into pieces. He wonders what they think of his new skill, but they are all left completely speechless. Meanwhile, we see a bear and a wolf alarmed by Makoto's immense mana, and they wonder if he poses a threat. Tomo tells Makoto that a bear and a wolf attacked the Highland Orcs, and Makoto wonders if it's due to the irregular weather in the demi-plane, so he wants to make a mist gate at the right place to get rid of the problem, whereas Mio thinks about cooking the bear, but Makoto tells her no, and says he wants to talk to them because he admires them. Makoto goes to the woods, where a bear appears before him, so he uses his red suit and quickly gets behind it, but starts cuddling it, which confuses the bear. The bear tries to hit him, but he uses Mana Matter to block and knocks it out. Makoto realizes that the wolf is also nearby, so he tries to tell them that he just wants to talk. He sees that there's a pack of wolves, and they attack him, but they aren't able to do anything against the Mana Matter. The wolves mention that they sensed extraordinary mana from him, and since he's the king of the demi-plane, they can't ignore him, but Makoto says he doesn't want to rule over them and just wants to apologize. He promises not to enter their woods again, and even suggests helping them, so the wolves are shocked that Makoto wants to share his territory, even though he's so strong. Makoto says he just wants to coexist and would like them to continue protecting the woods. A huge bear interrupts them and introduces himself as Brownie. He accepts Makoto's offer, but the wolf isn't sure if the one in the sky will agree. They go through with the agreement anyway, and the forest is named the Wolf's Woods. We see Makoto scolding Tomo and Komo for picking every persimmon on sight, but they are interrupted by an enormous eagle, who reveals that the wolves told him about Makoto, so he wants to introduce himself. He shrinks in size to talk, and introduces himself as the Boulder Bird, the ruler of the skies and mountains. He plans on watching the skies for Makoto, and wonders if he has any plans for him, but Makoto tells him to keep doing what he's been doing. Makoto mentions that he knows about rock birds, and the eagle asks to be called Rock because he likes the name. After he leaves, Makoto thinks about how he has been gaining more followers, which makes Tomo jealous, and she says that those who have not formed contracts with him should be called his subjects and not his followers. On the other hand, Abelia meets Jin for drinks, and he tells her that he has been working with Shiki, which makes her jealous. Jin thinks about how they have never talked like this before, but she says that their hands have been full, because if their grades fall, they will lose their scholarships, so in a way, they are more like rivals than friends. Jin wants to beat the demi-dragon before the summer break ends, and Abelia believes they have a chance, so they decide to make it their last activity before the end of the summer break. They talk about how they were scouted by the academy, but weren't making any progress before they met Makoto. Jin wonders why Abelia isn't going home during the break, but she tells him she has nowhere to go, since her mother is already dead. Jin talks about a girl named Miranda, who lived in his village and was stronger than him. She was an orphan who was forced to fight monsters and handle difficult jobs, and Abelia wonders if she was his master, but he reveals she was his first love. He started to help her out, but one day, they were ordered to investigate the Forbidden Forest, where they came across a mage workshop. They were attacked by a monster, but while he was struck with fear, Miranda went on a rampage and killed the monster, which made him call her a monster, causing her to run away. He couldn't forgive himself for his powerlessness, so he honed his skills and came to the academy, and he wants to become as strong as Miranda so he can apologize to her. Eris tells Makoto that the students are trying to fight the demi-dragon again without telling him. Makoto mentions that the Rembrandt sisters have returned home, but Shiki reveals a report from Lime, and it seems the sisters came back and are making plans with the other students. Shiki believes that the demi-dragon won't be a problem for them at their current level, so Makoto decides to leave them be and tells Eris not to watch over them, but she reveals that there's a pack of demi-dragons near them, which could be a problem. Shiki wants to investigate the situation, while Makoto decides to take care of the dragons, but decides to leave one for the students to fight. During his investigation, Shiki comes across the sacred treasure of Elysian, the Scepter of Dragons, which he thought was lost when the nation was destroyed. He immediately contacts Makoto, who has also come across the sacred treasure. Shiki believes someone performed a ritual to activate the treasure, which is why the demi-dragons were summoned, and he thinks it's the work of the demons. Makoto reaches the pack of dragons, but he transports one away for the students to fight, and he then jumps straight into the demi-dragons with his mana matter. The dragons attack using their breath, but it has no effect on him. Makoto easily defeats the dragons and takes their meat for Mio. Meanwhile, Shiki comes across demons resisting the Demon Lord, but a few manage to escape with the sacred treasure, leaving Shiki with no useful information. The students prepare to fight the demi-dragon, and they get into their battle formation. Dinah distracts the dragon, and Jin uses this opportunity to slash it. It attacks with its breath, which the students try to block with their shields, but it's too much for them to handle, so Masuri uses an enhancement skill to absorb the fire. Dinah also uses an enhancement to boost all his attributes, and he cuts up the demi-dragon. Izumo stops its movements, and Masura hits it with his fire sword, while Abelia pierces it with her arrows. Sif prepares to use her most powerful spell, and Izumo traps the dragon in a barrier to ensure her attack lands. When the dust clears, everyone is happy to see that the dragon has been defeated, but Jin knows he has to get even stronger if he wants to find Miranda. We see Sophia and Lancer at the mage workshop that Jin mentioned, and we learn that Sophia is actually Miranda. She mentions how the workshop belonged to Ludo, and she thinks about Jin, but disperses the thought, telling herself that she's no longer Miranda. She notes how Luto was the one who created her, but she's determined to defeat all the greater dragons and consume him. The summer break ends, and a festival will soon be held at the academy. Makoto is surprised to learn that the festival has a competitive tournament, and Shiki explains that guests from Limia and Britannia are invited to evaluate the students. Luto wants Makoto to check out the festival with him, but Makoto tells him that Mio and Tomo are also coming, so he should go with them instead. Shiki talks about the additional staff they will add to the shop, and Makoto believes the Elder Dwarves will be suitable for the job. Luto wonders if Makoto hates humans, since he's kind to the demi-humans, but Makoto gets irritated and tells him to leave. Makoto notes that Luto will be meeting important people during the festival, and he goes by the name False, whereas Shiki is interested in Luto's experiments. A temple priest named Shinai arrives at the shop and tells Makoto that people are concerned that his medicines are too effective for their price. Makoto thinks he's about to ask for a bribe, but Shinai wants him to let the temple handle his sales. Makoto doesn't fully understand his offer, so Shinai explains that the temple will help clear the rumors about his shop if he reveals his production methods. Shinai assures him that they just want to inspect the methods and promises not to leak them, but Makoto thinks this will allow the temple to make his products. Makoto knows that a few of their temple members, including their previous bishop, were involved in the humanoid experiments, but the bishop was killed by Rona. He knows that having connections with the temple will benefit him, so he agrees to disclose his methods. The next day, Makoto and Shiki visit the temple, where the bishop thanks Makoto for his understanding, and they plan to clear up rumors about his shop, along with helping him find a solution for his inability to speak. She suddenly leaves, and Makoto is surprised, so Shinai is disappointed with his manners. Makoto gives him everything needed to make his products, but he takes Makoto to answer a few questions while the alchemists do their work. Shinai is impressed to learn that Makoto has opened 2 shops in such a short time, so he wonders if anyone is backing him. Makoto says he doesn't have a backer, but the Rembrandt Company has helped him out. Shinai notes that the temple has the opposite relationship with them, and Makoto remembers that Patrick stopped worshipping the goddess after his family became ill. After they leave, the bishop tells Shinai that they just wasted their time, because Makoto blocked all their attempts to examine his mind and his mana. She also reveals that even though Makoto correctly explained his methods, with their current abilities, they only have a 50% chance of success, and they would need to charge 100 times his price. Back at the shop, Jin finds out that Eris has beaten the lizard man before, so he tries to find out how she did it. Makoto and Shiki return, and seeing Eris boast about her strength, they threaten to send her back to the demi-plane boot camp, so she begs for mercy and promises not to be so arrogant, while Makoto also tells Jin that he shouldn't come to his class if he plans on cheating. As Makoto walks through the town, he senses someone following him, but he pretends not to notice anything. When he heads into an alley, his pursuers launch an assault, revealing themselves as members of the Assassin's Guild. They attack him, but he quickly defeats them using his Brid. There's only one man left, and Makoto realizes he's the same one who attacked him during the academy entrance test. Makoto sees that the assassin's blade has been fixed, and the man reveals that it was made from the scales of Lancer, but Makoto thinks it's a waste. The assassin keeps attacking, but it has no effect on the mana matter, and Makoto defeats him with a single punch. Makoto feels agitated, so he returns to the demi-plane and starts shooting his arrows. Tomo welcomes him back, and he wonders how her investigation of the demi-plane's climate change is going. She thinks they can wait to act on it after the festival, but reveals that she has found an effective method to solve the problem. She shows him a place where placing a mist gate will result in weather that's similar to Japan, but it's in the demon's territory, and they have a fortress near the area. She asks for his permission to get rid of the demons, but Makoto knows this will make them their enemies, so he decides to think about it before making any decisions. The festival begins, and Makoto's shop is filled with customers. He asks Shiki where Lime and the Elder Dwarves are, and he says he made them organize the line of customers outside the shop, so it won't be a problem for other shops. Makoto wonders how their sales are going, and Shiki reveals that they have almost reached their goal for the day, because adventurers from other cities have also come to the shop, so Shiki thinks about distributing vouchers in case they run out of stock. At night, Everyone goes to Gotetsu to enjoy the festival, and Makoto wonders if they have enough staff to deal with the rush. Luria notes they were prepared for this, and her sister is also helping out. Makoto is surprised that Eva has the patience to wait on customers, but Luria mentions that she's only helping with washing the dishes. Meanwhile, representatives from Limia and Laurel meet. Laurel's representative Saritsu wants their priestess back, but the king of Limia notes that Chie chose to help Hibiki on her own. Saritsu thinks Chie is being put in danger, so they suggest Laurel should send their own forces to accompany Chie if they have a problem. Saritsu notes that Chie is irreplaceable to them, so she hopes they can reach an agreement by the end of the festival. On the other hand, Makoto and the others enjoy themselves, but we see they are being watched by Lily, and she's irritated by their foolish behavior. On the second day of the festival, the students are judged on their manners during a lunch attended by foreign guests. Makoto meets Patrick and his wife Lisa, and she thanks him for all he did for her family. Makoto is approached by Saritsu, but he sees her bodyguards are demons disguised as humans, and wonders if she's aware. He realizes that she knows about him, because she isn't surprised that he can't speak. She reveals she's an official from Laurel, and is responsible for looking after the priestess and Kamuro. She wonders if Makoto knows about them, so he mentions that their priestess is their people's spiritual leader, whereas Kamuro is a candidate to become a priestess. She finds it odd that Makoto is using something that Laurel considers a secret, but he has no idea what she's talking about, so she explains that two characters in Makoto's shop sign are characters from the Sage script, and it's something only a few people in Laurel know about. She wonders if Makoto is a sage, but he doesn't consider himself wise enough to be called a sage. Saritsu explains that sage is actually a person from distant lands who possesses inconceivable knowledge, which makes Makoto realize she's talking about people from other worlds, but he continues to pretend not to know what she's talking about. She tells him that Laurel offers protection to sages, so he would be welcome there, but he tells her that if he comes across one, he will recommend them to go to Laurel. She believes that the two heroes are also sages, and wonders what Makoto thinks about this, but he refuses to answer since he has never met them. Saritsu comes across Lily, who's surprised to see Laurel making contact with Makoto. She thinks about how Tomoki has been obsessed with Tomo, so she has to do something about them. She wonders why Saritsu met with Makoto, so she says she was interested in the medicines he makes. Lily mentions she also wants to buy Makoto's medicine, but Saritsu offers to get them for her, which makes her realize that she doesn't want her to meet Makoto. Lily reveals that Gritania's interest in gunpowder has increased, so she wants Saritsu to tell her more about its handling and its uses. Lily knows she's wary of her, but still thinks she might accidentally give up useful information, whereas Saritsu's guards, who have been charmed by Tomoki, will take care of the rest. Makoto talks with Patrick, when he's interrupted by Ilum, but Makoto forgets who he is. He apologizes for not remembering him, and offers to hear him out later, but Ilum declares he won't forgive him, and will crush his students in the tournament. Shiki reminds Makoto who Ilum is, and says he'll look into the situation tomorrow, because he promised to accompany the students to their tournament drawing today. Tomo and the others draw straws to decide who gets to walk beside Makoto, and Ludo wins the bet, making Mio and Tomo angry. Makoto wonders if the Sage script is like kanji, and if they'll understand him if he speaks Japanese, but Ludo says that only the other heroes can understand it. They go to the academy, where Ludo sees Lily watching them, so he decides to leave, saying that he has something important to do, but everyone knows he's lying. They meet Makoto's students, and the Rembrandt sisters say that their father calls Tomo and Mio the pillars supporting Makoto. Mio is relieved that they didn't lump her together with Shiki, which surprises the students, as Makoto tells them that they are much stronger than Shiki. Makoto wonders where Ilum is, but Shiki mentions he has yet to arrive. He reveals that Ilum is a Limia noble, and is the second son of the Hopleys family. Makoto tells the students that Ilum will target them during the tournament, and even though it's because of Makoto, he won't help them, but the students are confident in their abilities. Makoto likes their attitude, but he imposes restrictions on everyone for their matches to make things more difficult. Shiki explains that by limiting them, Makoto hopes that they'll be more careful, and if they succeed, Makoto will take their training to the next level. Lily meets with Ludo, and wonders if the Adventurer Guild is backing Makoto, but he says that the guild doesn't support anyone. She mentions that Tomoki wants to make Tomo his own, but he was defeated by her, and she wonders if she can beat her. But Ludo tells her no, and warns her that taking on Makoto's company would be like going to war with the demons. She wonders why Ludo helped her before, but he says she will figure it out eventually, and that she should focus on making an ideal world for her hero, which makes her realize that he's telling her to focus on retaking Fort Stella. Meanwhile, the nobles try different methods to get rid of Makoto, but he stops all their attempts. The next day, Patrick tells Makoto that he's being summoned to the Merchants Guild, but their representative is Patrick's old friend, so he decides to go in Makoto's place. The tournament is about to begin, but Makoto sees that all his students are placed to fight against each other, which makes him realize the Hopleys have much more influence than he thought. The tournament begins with the first match between Dinah and Yuno, which results in Dinah's victory. The next match is between two of the highest level participants, Jin and Masura, who are both at level 97. They are provided with wooden swords for safety, and each one is given 3 dolls, which will receive any damage the student takes. The match begins, and Jin is the first to attack, but Masura defends himself. The match continues without either of them taking a hit, but Jin is declared the winner by the judges. The tournament continues advancing, and Makoto thinks the mage category is a complete mess. Abelia and Sif's match begins, and Sif attacks using a fire arrow, but Abelia dodges it. Makoto is impressed that she not only dodged it, but also completed chanting her incantation at the same time. But Sif's arrow returns and hits Abelia, so she uses this opportunity to use an earth spiral spell that summons a hand from the ground to hold Abelia, causing her to surrender. The guests think that Sif used her wealth to buy expensive equipment, but Lily is impressed by her desire to try new things, instead of settling on what they have. The guests think Sif's methods were underhanded, but Lily tells them if that's the case, Tomoki defeating demons from the skies is also underhanded. Limia's king agrees with her, and Ludo thinks they will be even more amazing after receiving the goddess's blessing. In the second round of the mage category, Izumo faces Sif, who covers herself with earth magic and attacks with fire blasts to defeat him easily. Meanwhile, in the warrior category, Jin faces Dinah, but the fight also ends quickly with Jin's victory. In the mage's final, Sif faces an older student who was good enough to get an offer from the court of Lemia, but Sif quickly opens a hole underneath him, and while he's stuck, she uses a fire blast to easily win the match. In the warrior's final, Jin faces Ilum, but Ilum has a real sword and armor, whereas Jin only has a wooden one. The match begins, and Ilum is the first to attack, but Jin quickly knocks his sword out of his hand. Ilum starts chanting an incantation and attacks again, but the result is the same. Ilum asks the referee to help.
Emperor Vitiate has always been known as the Sith with strange and esoteric abilities in the Force. He spent much of his life shut up in laboratories and a library just studying the dark side, fascinating, obsessing over it. During the Great Galactic War, it even got so bad that some Sith in the Empire speculated if the Emperor ever existed anymore because of how secluded he had become. Only rarely do we get to see the fruits of his intense study, but when we do, it's absolutely game-changing. This was the case with one of his most vile experiments, the children of the Emperor. This experiment in the dark side could have had the potential to bring down the Jedi and the Republic had it remained undiscovered, and to this day, it remains one of Vitiate's most brilliant strokes of genius. So today, follow us as we open another holocron to discuss the children of the Emperor, and how they almost destroyed the Jedi Order from within. During the later years of the Great Galactic War, the Sith Emperor would plant sleeper agents all throughout the Republic, and even some inside the Jedi Order. However, he needed them to remain completely undiscoverable and totally loyal to him alone, despite Jedi doctrine. Vitiate was an extremely cautious man. He didn't trust traditional spies, as any number of variables could go wrong, and he believed that the Jedi would smell out their traitorous intent. To get around this tricky aspect of the Force, Vitiate decided that he needed agents that did not know that they were his servants. To this end, the children of the Emperor were created. Infants from a myriad of worlds across the galaxy were taken by the Sith and brought to Vitiate. The Emperor worked closely with a Sith alchemist by the name of Darth Nul, who took the children and broke them down, indoctrinating them to unconditionally serve their Emperor. She would use alchemy and sorcery to alter their physiology in order to make them more receptive of the Emperor's power. After this, Vitiate himself would come closer upon them.
Right.
It's like
children and
they're
their
throwing me
bodies,
off.
his
It's
power,
like
his
both,
thoughts.
like
This
both
would become
pictures, the hand
extensions
is
of
it's
himself,
just like
his will.
throw me off.
The children were
And
then
then
placed
I
into
know the
wide
right one is
galaxy,
like
hardly
that
any of them
pronounced
knowing their true
Douglas is
purpose,
just like,
or even remembering what had happened. They essentially
I was leaning at this one, but I like the hand placement in this one better.
Yeah, it's like I like the hand placement in that one, but it's like I just feel like the hand is
much like the Inquisitors.
like a little too high or something,
The
or it's
children
too
of the
far
Emperor were
forward.
present in all
Maybe.
Like it's too
all
close to
levels
the
of
mouth. I
government,
feel like it should be
bureaucracy,
further back.
military.
This one?
And yes, even among
The one on the left has to be further
the
back.
children had no idea what they
Okay.
really were. It was
Like
impossible
her
to
hand
sense any
placement is just like way too
malicious
far forward.
intent until they were activated. When that happened, the personality of
It's
the
like,
Emperor's child would overtake the
I like
everyday
the face she's
personality,
making
unwillingly
here,
transforming them
Right.
into an extension of
But
Vitiate's
then,
will.
but the hand placement's
This
better
never had another
here.
trick up his sleeve. You see, all the rest of the children were protected from the sight of the Jedi by the first son. For a long time, it remained a complete mystery who the first son of Vitiate
these are just my
was,
flagged
until
images.
it
Let me
was
go
revealed
back
the
through
Jedi
here.
Master Sayo Bakar, a member of the High Council. The Jedi Master unknowingly used
So I
his
wanted
power
something
to shield
fun.
his siblings and ensure they remained undiscovered even by the sight of Satil Shan. The Sith Emperor was also poised to make a strike that would bring down the entire Jedi Order.
See, I did this
Republic
one.
with a snap of his fingers. However, a few flaws presented themselves.
You know, I could do
that
this
were
one.
on loose ends. Many other Sith knew about the children of the Emperor, and it wasn't as much a well-guarded secret amongst the Sith Empire as it should have been. Malgus knew all of it all along, with a few others such as Darth Sajar. Darth Nul had been killed by Vitiate not long after the experiment concluded, as Vitiate no longer...
So I wanted hands. I wanted a slight indentation on the face.
First learn of the children's existence. Sajar had been a Jedi Padawan who briefly turned to the dark side
Did
and
I?
joined the Sith Empire.
I didn't
But
do this
soon,
one.
he
I didn't do
would
these.
rouse his
Just look
ways,
back.
being brought back to the light
That
by a
could
powerful
work.
Knight of the Order. Out of universe, this Jedi Knight is your playable character in SWTOR. Sajar ended up divulging the information about the children of the Emperor to this Jedi, though, and his word was confirmed when one of the children by the name of Valus made his moves on
Thinking the one on the right.
within
Right,
Order.
right's the better
The Jedi
picture.
Knight who had
Yeah.
turned Sajar had
Only
a
reason I'm
powerful
saying that
idea
is
of
because
Kira. She was a former child of the Emperor who learned of her
I
true
think the
origins
next
and
throw
fled
in
the
that
Empire.
Yeah.
Valus had attempted to capture her and bring her back to the Emperor for reconditioning and to be reinstated as one of his children, but he was defeated by this Jedi Knight. Kira would be convinced by her master to divulge all the information she had on the mysterious group, and after this, Kira would be corrupted by the mind of the Emperor as she attacked her master, attempting to kill them.
Definitely
During
need this
the-
one.
Kira managed to use strenuous power in the light to sever the mental link between herself and Emperor Vitiate. And while this was occurring, another Jedi diplomat was traveling.
I need
to
some I heard.
Japan,
Oh,
having formed
that's a
an alliance.
classic one,
This
though.
alliance was a
Why
group
did I
of
not pick this
ambassadors who
before?
represented planets, planets that had a growing dislike for
I was
the
like, you have
Republic's supposed
a lot of good
incompetence
shots in
and
there,
threatened
especially
to
ones with
secede from them.
hands.
The Jedi
Yeah.
joined
Just-
them, trying to fix whatever problems they had to restore their faith in the Republic.
It's her son.
Little did this Jedi know, though, that among the Rift Alliance ambassadors was a hidden child of the Emperor, someone feeding all
I'm
of
getting
their movement
speakers
to the
with this.
Sith. The Sith were using this information to further destabilize relations between the Rift and the
That's
Republic.
starting to bug
But
me
the Jedi
that you have-
diplomat managed
Oh, that I'm using my headphones and speakers.
that would surely
Yeah.
wreck all alliances the Republic had with the Rift. Right before he died, though, the child mentions the first son, the leader of the children, who was shielding the others from the Jedi's sight. As the Cold War raged on, more and more children of the Emperor were being activated by the
Like,
day.
I know you don't
causing
celebrate it,
equal
but like,
problems for
fuck
the
it, I'm getting
Republic.
used to
This
it.
wasn't until the Jedi uncovered a hollow recording.
I mean, if somebody's gonna get, yeah, I don't celebrate it, but if somebody's gonna get me something for Christmas, I'm not gonna say no.
The Jedi Council. When the Jedi Master was confronted, the personality of the first son assumed control of his body and attempted to use his influence to turn the tide of the war on Corellia.
He did the right
However,
thing.
the Jedi Knight dueled
Lay
the
down.
first son and defeated him, allowing Bakarn to regain control of himself and destroy the identity that belonged to the Emperor, restoring the member of the High Council. Now realizing what he truly had become, the Jedi Knight removed his
I
shield
bet.
from the other children, finally enabling
It
the
was
other
even
Jedi
worse.
to
I was
sense
already
the
tired when
darkness
I
lying
left this
dormant
fucking
within
morning.
them. After that, it was only a matter
And
of
then
rooting
found
out
out
the children,
there was a-
purifying them with the
Then I
light
found out I
side
got
of
pushed
the
to fucking
Although this
cycle 1.
horrible thing happened to people unwillingly,
And I'm
there
like-
is a happy ending. The children of the Emperor would
I mean, to me, I
eventually
could've
get their
said sleep.
revenge. Their spirits would be among those present during the final battle with Tenebrae,
Yep.
Vitiate, and Valkorion. The children would join their power with the rest of
And
those
it
whom
was
the
so
Emperor
funny
had
because
wronged
we're
over
both,
his
like,
thousands of years.
me and-
collectively they
like,
would
we're
rise
all
up
looking,
as
it's like,
one to
why the
destroy
fuck-
his spirit once and for all. The spirits of
Am
the
I the
children,
one that's not in
lives
the route?
stolen, consumed
Was
by
Zach-
the greed
when
and
Zach was
Vitiate,
supposed to be the
they
extra
lived
one
in
over?
the shadowy corners of existence. They waited. They bided their time. Their anguish transformed into a resolve.
And they was like,
Ages
we should have
passed,
21. They was like,
empires
do we
rose
have
and
21?
fell,
It was
and
like,
yet their
yeah,
watchful
we got
presence
21.
endured,
He's like,
bound by purpose.
did somebody
They knew
took
that
you
even
out
the
and put
mightiest
Zach
Sith
in it.
lords, steeped in immortality, could not
And it
escape
wasn't
the
any
inevitable
of
fall
it wasn't
of
any of
race
the
that
management,
defeated
so
them.
definitely
And
had
when
to be
Vitiate's
a
dominion
dispatcher.
finally crumbled, when his arrogance led to his undoing,
Let's
the
swap you out.
time had
And I was like,
arrived.
well, the only
In
person
his
that could
final moment of
have done it.
vulnerability, as his essence
Well,
took
technically,
on
any of the
oblivion,
dispatchers
they
could have done it because we all have
like
Cortex
the
on our
vengeance of
phones
the
now.
Force, they surrounded him. Their
So
once
anybody
devoured
could-
spirits
could
now
done
the
it,
devourers.
technically.
They consumed
But
him utterly,
it's like-
stripping away his power, his pride, and his
Well,
existence.
why me?
In the
Why would
silence
y'all
that
switch
follows,
me
the galaxy
and put
felt
me
the faintest
on
ripple,
to cycle
a
one?
fleeting moment of justice. The children now free, faded into the Force
Like
itself.
all the people that give
Their
y'all
torment
problems that's on
finally
cycle
at an
one,
end. Darth
that's on
Vitiate,
cycle 0
the
today,
immortal
and you
tyrant
me.
was no more, undone by
okay.
the very souls
It's like, oh,
that
well,
he
he was
had
on cycle
sought to
0
dominate.
yesterday.
This was the
It's like,
experiment that nearly
because
destroyed
I
the
was
Jedi
asked
and
to
the
be.
Republic from within. A plan so
Wednesday's my
flawless in
regular cycle
creation,
0 day.
but horribly executed. The Emperor used them to disrupt order, to stop border disputes during the
So
Cold
not
War, and
only did
destabilize
I
relations with
lose
certain
sleep
stronghold
for no
worlds.
fucking
While they
reason,
were helpful during wartime,
but
there was a
I couldn't
huge
go
missed
back to
opportunity
sleep
with
because by the
sleeper
time
agents being
everything was
literally
fucking
undetectable
done,
among the Jedi. One in the High
I had to be right
Council,
out there
which
for
he
fucking
could
stand up at
gain
9 o'clock.
information on the
So I
Jedi
was only
war
gonna be
efforts,
around.
or even use the first
Like, what, I was
son
gonna
to
take,
begin
what, a
assassinating
45
members
minute
of the
nap?
High Council, or he could
Motherfucker, if I go
waited
back to
until
sleep,
the
I ain't getting
right
the fuck back up no
activated
time
all
soon.
of his children at once. Too many for the Jedi
I
to
know
deal
my
with,
body.
and then use them to completely
Mhm.
topple the government of the Republic.
So I just had to
I
stay
personally
awake.
think that he not
And
only
then I
left
ended up
too
with
many
fucking
loose
dentist.
ends among his own empire, but he waited far too
You-
long to actually
did you ever
do
deliver
something
in
with the
Vail?
weapons that he had. Their
To where?
creation was
Vail.
genius,
Are you
their
working with us?
execution
I think I did once.
Vitiate was of course
The
playing
one
the long
place I
game.
said
He was focusing
nobody
more
wants
on
to
his
fucking go
time
to
and
because
attention
everything
to
is
the
spread the
Eternal
fuck
Empire
out. It's
and
like
the
5 to 8
regions
minutes in
space,
between
and not
stops.
what he
Yeah.
thought was a Sith
Yeah.
Lord.
I remember I did have a few stops like that.
The Republic from what was going on
Denton is
beyond them,
literally
so that the Sith
a
Empire
nicer
would be
version of
blinded by
Vail.
the arrival of the Eternal
Mm.
Empire as well. But what do
'Cause
you
Vail
think,
just
my
looks
friends?
straight
Do you think that Vitiate should have gone for the kill? And would you
country
like to see a
and
Sith this crafty more often in
redneck
the war?
and
I think Darth Bane would have
trailer-
approved of this kind of cunning
trailers all
movement,
over the place.
assuming it's
Yeah.
executed
That's Vail.
properly, of course.
Denton's
But
like,
let us know your thoughts on this
oh,
down below.
nice home.
And a secret
and a
weapon
couple
of
of
Emperor
trailers
Vitiate.
and farms.
As always, my friends, be careful where you
For
venture in the
everything still
galaxy and who you
5 to 8
trust.
minutes
And as
apart.
always, may the Force be with you.
So I was like, yeah, I'm not getting back no time soon.
Nope.
But the funny thing was, there was like 8 of us out there in Denton today, and I beat every single last one of them back.
Mm.
And I got, and they had less stops than me. And I didn't even have a lot. I
In
only
the
had like
very first
101.
order of the Jedi Order,
They had like
the members
90.
of the Jedi
80.
Council would fall to the dark side.
I think one other person had like
We'll
105.
explain his story. The Jedi
I
High
was like,
Council was always supposed to serve the
I beat
Order
every
as a
single last
beacon
one of
of
y'all back
authority
by
and to set an example.
like by the time I
for
got
what
back, y'all
Jedi
still had
should
30
strive
stops
for.
left.
The High Council
Every single last one of
typically
y'all
contained
had
the
like 20,
strongest and
something like
wisest
high
members of
20s
the
to
Order
low
in
30s
any given era.
left.
It was
That's
exceedingly
wild.
rare
I'm
for
like,
any members of the council to fall to the dark
the
side.
fuck are y'all
But it
doing?
turns out that one of the very first council members in the very history of the Jedi,
Because I got the
turned to
worst
dark
part
side and
of
became
Denton.
a dark
Y'all
Jedi.
got
His
the
name
easier
was
parts.
Master
Like,
Rajavari,
people hate the
and
fucking
he was
lakes
one of the
up
most
there
powerful and
in Denton.
influential Jedi of his era, or should we say,
because they got
the
those
ancient
long ass
Jedi
fucking
era.
driveways.
The
They're
year
like
was
they're just long
25,800
enough
wide in the ancient days of the
to
Jedi
where
Order.
you
This
sit
one
there and you
master
like you
would be a
contemplate do
founding
I
member
drive
of what would
up
become
this
the
bitch?
High Council.
But then you realize this bitch is so fucking steep. I'm going to scrape the back of this fucking van if I try to go up that motherfucker. So you have no choice but to run it.
Mm-hmm.
So they hate it.
Went out in a
So they walk
blaze
up
of
the
glory.
they'll walk up
So
the drivers,
those
walk
who
back
can
down, or
follow
they'll
and
attempt
look
to
into
pull
the
in
scandalous
and then struggle to
history
get the
of
fuck back
Jedi
out.
Order and study the life of Master Rajavari.
So they take
Before
forever
we
in that
begin,
area. Me,
we've had a terrible premonition in the Force.
I fucking
Many
blaze
who
through that
visit
area
and
because
use
it's
our
really not
archives
spread
have
out
not
like that.
subscribed
It's
to our
just
order.
the
So if
driveways.
you've been enjoying the daily holocron uploads and
Because it's
openings,
all neighborhoods.
reach out
It's
and
like
crush
that whole
subscribe
lake
button.
area
It
is literally
your
two
destiny.
big ass neighborhoods.
Now, acolytes, let us begin. Anytime a Jedi falls to the dark side, it is a tragic event, especially if they're a Jedi Master. But this one was especially heart-wrenching when we know exactly
There's only
who
two
Rajavari
main streets
was.
that go through
Master
there.
Rajavari was a
And that's all you
well-respected
got. Those
Jedi
are the only
Master
two streets you
within
got to
the
worry about when
Jedi
you're
Order,
delivering
known
the
for
houses on
being
those streets.
extremely wise
Everything
and
else,
strong. In fact, he would be a general
park
in
around the
the first
fucking house
two
and run
wars
that bitch
ever
up,
fought
run-
by the
come
Jedi,
the fuck back.
the Despot War and the Force War. The Despot War had been an event where the Queen, by the name
like I
of
did a
Padilla
split route
of a
over
nearby
fucking
system, put
in that
together
area.
a
It
massive
was like
army
80
in
stops,
order
and I
to
was
conquer
back
the
at like
planets
fucking
in her
1:30.
shared system, uniting them.
And you don't even get paid full day for that.
Yeah, they was
The
like,
ancient
what the
Jedi
fuck?
decided to intervene since it
He's like, how the
involved
fuck
them
you
as
get
well,
back so
causing
fucking quick?
a massive war to
You was
break
in
out
Denton.
on
I was
the
like,
world
eh?
Titan. Jedi Master
I was like, it was the
Rajavari
lake. It
would
was like,
first
the
gain
lake
prominence
sucks. I
when
was
he
like,
served
not
as a
to me.
general during this war and would win several key victories
That's
for
like
the
nice,
Jedi.
it was nice
The
and
war would
peaceful.
come to a
I
violent
have to worry
end,
about no
when the
dogs.
Jedi Ranger, Dagan Locke, would
Because all the
murder
dogs are
Queen,
inside
and the
because they
whole
know to
event
put their
Jedi
fucking
in
dogs
its
away.
tense place, with many still
Only
on
issue
high
is they got
alert
these
years
steep
after
ass
the
fucking
incident,
driveways.
since this was one of the first times the Jedi had marched to war. Master Rajavari, having
That's
been
it.
disturbed by his time in the war, desired seclusion in order to meditate
Now,
on
you
the
want to go out to
balance
where
of
I
the
was at.
Force,
Deal
achieving
with
it
all the
once
fucking
more,
dirt roads and
feeling as
shit.
if his inner
Especially
scales
today.
had tipped
'Cause it was
toward
raining all fucking
bloodshed.
day.
Jedi Master Rajavari laid down his weapon
Sitting there having
and
to
went
maneuver
off
that
in
fucking van to make sure I
isolation
didn't
to
get
the
fucking
temple
stuck.
known as
Right.
Cache.
Oh, did I tell you what happened? Right, it was the day I went back to work.
Came to the Jedi Master for advice.
So how about it was because it had just rained. It had rained like hell the day before, and I had went to this house, and the house sat on a hill, so I couldn't see anything. So I'm like, the only way I'm gonna be able to see anything is if I turn into the driveway and put the high beams on. So I did that, went down to deliver the package, got back, and you know, what I should have did, I should have backed it. But if I'd have backed it, I still wouldn't have been able to see anything. So I put the van in reverse, and I got stuck. So I had to, and then the problem was they had the only piece of concrete they had. The pickup, their pickup truck was there, so I couldn't turn in there. So I had to go all the way down to where it was flat, turn around, and come back up. Problem was I couldn't get enough momentum. So the owner came out and mad because apparently people had been messing up her driveway. So she thought it was me. I was like, "No, I'm with Amazon. I was I couldn't see, so I turned the high beams on, couldn't back out, so I came down to turn around and I'm stuck." So they were trying to we had to get me to rock out the hole I had made, and I was like, if you guys could pull the truck out, I can at least pull in there, so I get enough momentum to go up. Man, how about we was there for like 30 minutes trying to get that damn van out. And they were like, you lucky you didn't keep going down because there's a lake down there. And it's steep downhill. I was like, yeah.
efforts, nor would there be lore keepers.
That would have sucked. My first day back, did I put this fucking van in the lake?
This era of peace would not last very
They've
long.
been looking at me
And
like,
secretly, Rajabari had been growing fascinated
Why the
with
fuck
the
did
dark
you
side itself.
bring this
He
dude
could
on?
no longer
I'm
deny
like,
its
look,
whispers as it
I'm
called
just here
him
getting
in the
niggas
dark
jobs.
hallways of the temple.
I
In
ain't
his
say
most
that he
vulnerable
was
and private
gonna be
moments.
fantastic.
The reason for Master Rajavari's
Don't put that
fall
on me.
is not currently known, making his fall extremely rare among the lore.
But then again, if that happened, you really couldn't blame me for it because I was still kind of inexperienced.
A few factors, and we have
And there's no way I would have known that.
discovered that he was a Jedi back in the days
I
when
remember
the
people
Order
used to
hadn't
shit
committed
bricks
to be
when they used to have to go out to
peacekeepers or
Vale
wants to
and
fight
do the
the
mountain
dark
area
side
Vale.
directly.
Mhm.
Master
Oh,
Rajabari,
people used
like
to
many
shit
of
bricks
the
because
other
they be
ancient
going
Jedi,
around that
was
fucking
scholars, one who wanted to seek
those
out the
bins,
mysteries of
and
the
there's
Force.
no guardrails, and they look over
Oh.
and it's literally just straight drop off.
Oh, God.
And they're like, how the fuck did Malcolm actually do this shit, bro? Like,
Shortly
I
after
do
this,
not want to
Master
do this shit no
Rajavari's
more.
own
I was
order
like,
decided to imprison a
I
man
can
who
drive,
had a
bitch.
terrible vision of the future, a vision that came true. The result was yet another war and mess that he had to clean up. Forced to come out of the self-chosen exile in order to fight against the first real dark side threat the Jedi had ever faced, Rajabari stared directly into the abyss, and the abyss stared back. Let's also not forget that the Jedi at this time were also using the Force Sabers, requiring them to use the dark side to activate them. Rajabari was on record not wanting to wield the Force Saber in combat. So now, having been thrust into darkness and seeing the horrors of war with no escape more than once, his mind was lost. Following his fall, Rajabari would lead a section of the Jedi students into the darkness with him, and they all became some of the first recorded Dark Jedi. Apart from Dagan Locke, of course, Rajabari sought to destroy the very Jedi Order that he had built, so that he could remake it in his own image. The Master established a set of key principles for his students to abide by, all of which ran contrary to the Jedi's virtues. While we don't know each of them in order, we do know the second principle: all life is a battle, even to the last breath. And the seventh principle, to sacrifice strength, is the act
when you
of
get as old as me,
both of these are clearly
These things
products of
happen.
Rajabari's trauma
you'll
from
know,
war.
you'll
The second
understand.
principle shows his extremist survival mentality, and the
Motherfucker
seventh
sitting here like,
shows us how he
it was funny
rejected the
'cause
Jedi way of self-sacrifice
Miguel,
after seeing all of his brothers die.
the ops manager, who's
It
also
was
Rick's
his
son,
fifth
Mhm.
he's sitting there looking at me, he's like,
It's the most
he's like,
controversial.
motherfucker, I don't know why you stretching like you getting ready to run, motherfucker, you going to debt.
Destruction. Jedi are
Where the fuck you gonna run? Like, most of your damn shit gonna be just straight driving. You ain't gonna have to fucking run.
comprehend it, such as a violent predator, for example. This can cause
At what
great
time you
harm
gonna make
or
a
harm in the future.
run?
Rajabari went off the
I was like,
deep
hey, I
end
can shave
and
about
believed
5
that
minutes off
mercy was a
my day.
fool's bargain, no matter the
He's like, shit,
situation.
more like 2.
He saw his enemies
Hmm.
as subhuman, mindless
You ain't
animals
saving no fucking
waiting
time
to
out there.
gut you, a product of having to fight the
watch.
ravenous Rakata. His time and teachings
Well,
as
my
a Dark
RTS time was
Jedi
supposed
would
to be
not
like
last very
8:15.
long, though, as the Jedi Order
So-
would swiftly respond to this issue and stamp out the darkness. Rajabari and his students would follow the second principle and fight until the very last breath. The final
Did you
stage
shave off any
of this
time?
corrupted,
Oh,
wretched
yeah.
order would be held in the fortress of Calais, as the Dark Jedi had fled there. The Jedi
Shaved off
Order
like a
laid
solid
siege to the
30
fortress
minutes.
for a long time, until Rajabari finally fell in battle.
Only brought back
His
one
students
package 'cause
refused
I
to
was like,
surrender even
ain't
after
no
their
fucking way
master
hell I'm
had
getting out
fallen,
this damn van.
deciding to adhere to his
We gotta
principles
fucking-
even till death, and they would all fall to the Jedi, one by one, in vicious battle. However, this
He had
is
a
not the
fucking,
end of the story of Master Rajabari, as he was so powerful
He had a
that he
Doberman
had learned to
and a
keep
pit.
himself from joining with the Force upon his death. He became
I
a
was like-
Force ghost, and his spirit lingered in the hidden fount
that-
of Rajabari,
that pit-
awaiting the day
pit
that
just
a
in your
worthy
face.
disciple would come
That
and
Doberman,
become the heir to all of
he
his
was like
knowledge.
real chill, just like
Thousands of
pacing
years
back and
later,
forth between
during
the
the
front and the
Cold
backyard,
War, the Jedi
constantly
had
watching. I was like,
Titan.
ain't
A
no
young
fucking way
Jedi
in hell I'm
by the
getting
name
out this
of
goddamn
Nalan
van.
fell to the dark side, seeking out the teachings of the ancient Rajabari. He managed to find the fount of Rajabari
that-
and move
Like
through
that
all
Doberman
the
look like he's
traps
about to
that the
tear
master
my
had
ass
set
up the second
upon
I step
Each
one
of
foot
these
out this
traps
bitch.
were meant to
Like,
test
no.
the seeker to see if they had
He looked
truly
like a
adhered
sneaky
to his
bitch.
teachings. However, Nalan had to just walk right through them in
instead of solving
So I'm
them.
like, fuck it.
This
I
caused
tried
him to
calling
suffer
dude. He
greatly,
didn't pick up.
as the tests ended up
Well,
driving him insane. And when he eventually
guess who's
found
not
the
getting
ghost
their
of
package?
Rajavali, he
Huh.
inherited all of the knowledge and set off to destroy the Jedi, something even more grotesque than Rajavali had become. A Padawan who was following Nayland ended up making it through the traps as well, and communed with the spirit of Rajavali. And it's here when the Force Spirit expresses his remorse for having
And I
given
had
his
one
knowledge to the young
fucking customer,
Nayland.
she tried it.
Rajavali admits that he
I
wanted
sent
to
the message
create a
letting her know I was on
successor,
my way.
but instead created
She saw me
a
pull
real
up
monster.
and get out
His
my van.
traps had warped
The second
Nayland's
I got out
mind,
the van,
and
she
now he
opened up the
wanted
door and
to
let the
destroy
fucking
the
dogs
Jedi
out.
instead of remake it. Rajavali
I was
had
like,
never wanted the Jedi to die out entirely.
Bitch,
He
you have a
wanted them to
corgi
become
and a
better,
chihuahua.
stronger,
I will
more
punt
like
both of
him.
these bitches.
Nayland attempted to first destroy them, the Great Forge, crippling the Jedi. The Forge, where all of the lightsabers were constructed, and this would strip the Jedi of their martial power and
Just
leave
punt
them
both of them.
to attack. The ghost of Rajavali, however,
Like,
would help the Padawan in
And it's not
fighting
like,
and
oh, she was letting him out to use the bathroom. Like, no, she literally looked at me
The Jedi Padawan
and
would
let the
speak
dogs out.
softly to the old master
and then went
Rajavali,
back inside and shut the
convincing
door.
him to come to peace and to
I
pass
was like,
on through the Force, accepting where he was wrong,
Technically, I could
and
just
finally
say you ain't getting
achieving
your
the
shit
rest
and
that
just
he
get back in
desired
the
in
fucking
life.
van and drive the
In
fuck
the
off.
end, Master Rajavali was amazingly wise, powerful, and influential. He was not the typical Dark Jedi who only wanted destruction.
Technically could've.
A madman.
And I was like,
He was
nah,
well-spoken, thoughtful,
let's pack
and
it because I
calm.
bring back.
He established many things in the structure of the Jedi which have lasted to this very day in the lore, and his intention was to cleanse the Jedi and make them stronger. However, he had been warped by trauma of two wars, ones that he begged not to have to participate in. He was angry
Alright,
by
my
the
brother.
short-sightedness of his peers, but in the end, he showed great sadness and remorse for
They got
having led a
Christmas
young
going
Jedi
on in the
to
digital
attempt
right
to
now.
destroy the
Ah.
Earth that he truly
So you
loved
can
deep
do the
down.
hunt down the
He
loot goblin.
redeemed himself by helping the Padawan to take
The
down
Loot Goblin.
preserving the Jedi, and
That's
passing
literally
on
what it's called.
the
It's called.
Force. And so,
Uh,
my friends, this was the story of the
They
first
call him
Jedi
the
Council
Gatherer.
member who fell to the
Division
dark
2
side.
players
Was the
call him the
extremely
Loot
rare
Goblin.
lightsaber form
Because he's literally running around with a sack on his back.
And welcome back to the archives. We have always known very little.
And
about
as you do
these
damage to
species,
him, he
with
drops
the most
loot.
reliable fact we know being that they
He's
are
a loot
exceptionally
goblin.
powerful in the
And then
Force.
once you kill him,
It's
he
our
drops more loot.
understanding that every member of Yoda's species is not only
And
innately
specifically,
Force
every
sensitive,
time you
but
kill
that
him,
they have a
he
connection
drops
to it that is far
one of the
beyond
Christmas
anything seen in other species.
items.
However, it seems the trade-off for this amazing potential
So he
in the
has
long
a
run
rifle,
is that they
a
are
marksman
physically
rifle,
gifted.
a
They are
revolver,
very short and physically weak,
submachine
always
gun,
having to make
a
adjustments
mask,
to their
and a
lifestyle
backpack.
in order to measure up to the world that surrounds them. Which brings us neatly to their approach to combat. While we don't often see
part about
Jedi
it is,
Yoda species actively
you
entering
can
into
literally
a
play it
battle,
on the
whenever
fucking
the
loop.
need arises, they always seem to
'Cause he
have
only
a
spawns
unique
at
way of
3
tackling
specific,
their enemy. And in today's
spots.
holocron, we are going to be analyzing the extremely rare
So you
lightsaber
literally just
form that was invented by a
fast
member
travel
of
to this
Yoda's
spot. Oh, he ain't
species
there?
for
Okay,
that
fast
very
travel to this spot.
purpose.
Oh, he's
So,
not there? Fast travel
acolytes,
to the third
let us
spot. Oh,
open
he's not there?
holocron.
Fast travel
Again,
back to the first spot.
before them,
If
we
he ain't
upload
there,
holocrons
when you
every
get back to that
single
first
day.
spot,
So if you've been
log
enjoying
off,
the daily Star Wars
go back
lore,
in,
reach
9
out
times out of 10,
and
he's
crush
gonna
that
be at that
subscribe
first spot.
button. It is
Mm.
your
That's one of
destiny.
his main
We
spots
have
that he tries.
seen it.
You don't have to go
The
fucking far.
lightsaber form that will be
It's like
revealed
usually
today
you walk out
is
the
when
fucking,
one fights with their lightsaber.
like you turn away from the fucking story mission,
This might
you run
seem
away,
like this could be
if you
something
see that
any Jedi
your
could do.
radar
Should
turn
be.
red,
We
like it has that
really
red circle
never
around the
seen two
outside.
beings do this consistently
He's
in the
there.
lore, to the point of making it their natural
He's
form
either
of
gonna be
combat.
immediately to
Interestingly,
your
this
left
lightsaber
as soon as you
style
walk
doesn't
out,
actually have
walk
a name
through
like
the
most of the
overpass,
other techniques
or he's
do,
gonna be
but it is simply referred to as
to your
kinetic
anywhere
combat.
to your
We
right.
trace the origins of kinetic combat
Because he
to a
spawns
member
by
of Yoda's species,
he always spawns out of the
lived
truck.
during the time of Revan
Right.
in the Old Republic. This
Spawns
member
out
of
those
Yoda's
white box
species
trucks.
was Vandar Tok'er, and
Usually
he, to
I
this
catch him
day,
the second he
remains
fucking
one of the
pops
most
the fuck out, and I
mysterious
just
of the
fucking
6 members
obliterate
of
his
Yoda's
ass.
species that are named in the lore. Unlike
So,
many
so
of
far
the
I've got
others,
2 of the
Master
revolvers,
Vandar
which are
speaks
technically
with
the
plain
best
dialect
the
instead
best
of the backwards
weapon
way
out
that
of
the
the
others
whole
typically do. Yaddle and
thing.
Canon also
Like,
speaks
that's what
plain
everybody
but for a long time
wants
in
to go
Legends,
for,
she
so I've gotten
didn't.
2 of
But
those.
we digress.
I've gotten
Vandar
one of
is
the
also
submachine
only one
guns.
who has olive skin that looks more human than the shades of green
I've gotten
shared
the
with
rifle,
his
which is
brethren.
fucking
And to top
useless,
it all off, Vandar
'cause
is
it
the
does
only
no
member of
damage.
Yoda's species that has shared their surname with the wider
Like,
galaxy.
literally, the stat
Vandar
says
Tok'er
0
sticks out in so many
damage.
categories
It's literally
that
a
it
water
almost
gun.
doesn't seem surprising
Oh my
his
God.
final staple
Yeah.
of individuality. He invented one of the most challenging using
It's
lightsaber forms ever. Like,
the only effect it
Vader was
has
a master of form
is
4 Atari.
You shoot your
But as the
allies,
Jedi
it
got
gives
older,
them
he began
resistance
to withdraw
buffs.
from the physical aspects of combat, choosing mostly to remain on capital
So if
ships
you're
and
playing
give
like a
commands to
healing
Republic
build,
fleets.
Mm.
However,
it would be
when he
useful
did
then,
enter
but
Republic
you're not doing
himself,
no damage
he
to no
wielded
enemies.
two green
Well, you
Showa
have to switch off your
lightsabers
weapon.
and dueled exclusively using
that's the only use
telekinesis, using
it
the
would have.
lightsabers apart from himself.
The mask
It
is
should be
okay.
noted that we are not entirely certain
It has
whether or not
uses.
Vandar actually
The backpack
invented
is
kinetic combat.
fun.
However, this form is not seen used by anyone before this time,
Really?
and the
I did
only
get the
other person
backpack.
to use it in
Yeah, I
the
did.
lore and legends
I got
is
the submachine
Freya,
gun in the
who
backpack.
existed at the same
The
time
only
that
things I
Vandar
need
did.
now is the
This means that
marksman
it's
rifle
likely that she
and
studied
the
his
mask.
lightsaber form and
But
adopted
the
it for
backpack,
her
if
own
you put
use
on
much later. This actually makes
concussion
sense
grenade,
because Kreia
Mhm.
too had many Jedi consular,
it turns the
and not
concussion
only that,
grenades
but a Jedi
into
historian,
regular,
while there
into
aren't any
firework
records to indicate she
grenades.
specifically trained under Master Tok'er. Kreia would have respected
So what
That
it
sounds
does is,
hilarious.
him as
If
well as
it-
his species. And since we know that Kreia herself
that-
is also
if that
incredibly
grenade
talented
hits
with the
a
Force
target,
in many aspects,
if there's
especially telekinesis,
another target
it
within
gives
20
credence to the
meters,
fact that she is able to use kinetic combat.
they also
Kreia
cause a
actually
fucking
took it a
explosion.
step further though.
Oh.
Purple lightsabers at once.
So,
the clear question here is, why do
imagine
Force
you
users
throw a
and
concussion
Force
grenade
users
on, and it's
this
up to
type of
2
kinetic
extra
combat
people.
Are quite
So you can
limited.
hit
Being able to manipulate
maximum of 3
multiple
people. So
lightsabers
imagine
through
you throw a
telekinesis
grenade
alone
and all
allows
3 of
one
them
to
are
attack
within
any
20
range,
meters of
with
themselves.
Vandar being capable of sending
Like
his
they're all
lightsabers
within
to fight
that blast
up
range.
to 60
Yeah.
feet away. This
And
would
they get
also
hit.
theoretically
Well,
allow
not
them
only
to
do they
conserve
get
their
hit with
own
that
physical
initial
energy
blast,
for further situations,
but 2 of
while
them
having a
are gonna
near
also
perfect balance
pulse
of
out
defense
another
and
blast.
offense. Their limbs are safe from the ever-present threat of dismemberment.
That's still gonna hit all
and it
3
is extremely difficult
and
for
just
an
do a
opponent to
shit
land
ton of
a
fucking
single
damage.
hit. As even if one is able to penetrate the barriers of the floating
Which is great
blades,
for
the
a
puppeteer
build
of
if you
lightsabers still has time to move out
run
of the way.
explosive
In a
builds.
way, kinetic
Like grenade
combat
launchers,
might just be one of the
grenades,
most overpowered
shit like
ways
that.
to use a lightsaber
Yeah.
next to
That'd be
Trokada. But just like that
stupid
discouraged
overpowered,
form,
even
it
though
also
you can
has
only
its
carry, like,
weaknesses, which
4
are
grenades.
equally glaring. It is
5
not
if you
perfect.
build
There is
for
a
it.
question of whether one even has the capability to do it in the first place. On the surface, kinetic combat seems like something that any
But
force builder should
that
be
revolver
capable of,
is
simply
a
using
headshot.
telekinesis and the lightsaber. But it's far
Just-
more complex
oh
than that. The
God.
sheer amount of a
This shit does
focus
so
and
much fucking
concentration that
damage
it takes for a force
headshot
wielder to lift
wise.
an object, then manipulate it with the same speed
Is
and
it?
precision as
Yeah.
they do with their
It's
own hand and
fucking
lightsaber
ridiculous. Like,
is
if you build that
extremely
shit for
difficult. Yoda did say
headshot
that
damage
size
and crit
doesn't matter,
chance.
but the accuracy in which an object is used is an entirely different
And then the
matter.
rest of
The
your
subtle
build is
gestures,
built for that?
spins, movements, and parries in lightsaber combat are
Yeah,
challenging enough, but taking
you
the
gonna be
physicality completely out of them
probably
and only using the force
either
is nigh
1 or 2
impossible.
tapping
Translating
bars.
all of one's
Oh,
strengths
Lord.
purely
Yeah,
telekinetically is
it
again
does.
also nearly
Stupid
impossible.
amounts of
Like
damage.
using the force to keep an entire machine
It's the
running,
hardest
each of
hitting
its individual parts. Once
sidearm
focus
in
has
the
to be
game.
magnified on their
Like,
lightsaber, and each
bar
of its
none.
movements
Like,
all
yeah, it
at
only has
once.
6
Now
shots,
multiply
but
that
it's
by
the hardest
2
hitting
for
fucking
even
sidearm
3
in the game.
weapons. In a duel,
Also,
they
it's a
must
revolver.
be aware of
Yeah.
their opponent and their next step, aware of their surroundings,
But at
and
the same
even subtle
time,
changes in the force. Not
the reason
only
why you
that,
know it's
they
the
have
hardest
to
hitting
passively
sidearm in the
concentrate on
game,
making sure
even
that
amongst
their
the
own force
revolvers,
shield
is the
stays
fact that
intact, so that an opponent cannot just grab their lightsabers out of the air.
when you
With
hit
all
level
of this
40,
in mind, we still haven't even gotten to the fact that force wielders
and your
still
stats are
need to
boosted,
remember how to
usually
move
they're
around
boost-
properly
when they're
in
boosted,
combat,
you see
should they need
the
to dodge or
numbers
gain
turn
better footing.
orange.
It is nearly
Mhm.
impossible for
Meaning
anyone
you're
short of Jedi Masters
no
with
rocking,
decades of experience to
no
accomplish any of this. And then we
upper
have to
tier,
factor in their natural talent with telekinesis,
no
because
damage.
some Jedi simply aren't as
That
naturally
bitch is yellow.
with it. Kreia and Vandar were certainly far more adept
His
at
damage numbers are
telekinesis than most
strictly
beings,
yellow,
which allowed
showing
them to
that
do
they're
this in
boosted
the
even
first
bu-
place.
beyond
Even if
that.
one were to train for a lifetime, one lapse in
Lee.
concentration will cause the lightsabers to react a
So it's like,
second too slow,
yeesh.
giving an opponent the opportunity to leap in and strike at the users completely.
Yeah, I tried it out and I was like,
undefended
ooh,
body.
I like
While
this.
earlier we said that they
And I'm
could
not
just
even
move
a
out of the way.
handgun
There is still the
type of guy in
possibility that
Division
they
2.
react too slowly.
I haven't made no
their
builds for
entire
it yet,
focus
but
on their
good.
lightsaber.
God,
Kinetic combat
that
is
shit
not something that is
fucking
as straightforward as it sounds,
chomps
because it literally
enemies.
brings even the most powerful force wielders' concentration to their very limit of power, leaving them exposed in many areas.
That sounds rather interesting.
Sidious and Nihilus could potentially do this without too many problems. Do not because of the risks. None of this is to say that kinetic combat is in any way a bad form to use, though, as it is extremely effective, but the ability to master it.
Oh, this is gonna be interesting.
Especially on such a fine-tuned level like this. Having said that, we wanted to bring this back to Vandar Tokare
turn her
himself.
into some
and
Asian
talk about
woman.
how interesting it is that
Say
each
what?
of the members of
Turn
the
her
other
into an
species
Asian.
have
I'm not. I'm doing her makeup.
lightsaber combat to make up for their own physical shortcomings. Yoda himself became a master of Ataru
It'd be
on a
interesting
level
seeing you
never
play
seen
Division 2
before.
on
He
the
was
new
able
rig.
to simply jump and climb over
I
all of
plan
his
to.
opponents, slip their guards effortlessly.
People have asked me to jump back
A
on.
swarm of blows before they knew what was happening with overwhelming strength. Yaddle
I
became
should
a master
log
of
in
many esoteric powers.
to the
She was
Division 2
adapted to menace on
on
Yoda's
PC, so
level
that
and
way
knew
I
the
can
ways of Morchiro,
pull my,
the power to slow someone's vital signs with the
my other
Force
kit,
itself.
so that way
While
I
this
can
isn't
make sure I
shown
get
in canon, we likely
the
can
limited
summarize
drops.
that Yaddle was not trying to harm
Hmm.
Dooku in their duel, and of
'Cause
course,
I think they're
Vandar
still doing the
decided
better-
to not even be bothered entering a fight
veterans,
physically, but instead
drop
he
for
chose
the,
to wield his
Lexington
lightsabers
assault
with the
rifle.
Force
Yeah.
so that he could reach his opponent
Which is
when
a
he could not.
beast.
Vandar, being of a smaller
I
stature,
was
actually
playing with it
works in his
yesterday, and I was
favor
like,
with kinetic combat.
oh, if you
We
build
saw
this
earlier
right,
that should the
this
opponent
shit
manage to
fucking
pierce the wall of the
crazy.
sabers, that it would leave
I was
the
like,
user
yeah.
exposed. But for Vandar Tokare, as
Does
such a
it?
small target, it
Yeah.
made it even more challenging for
Yeah, I
his
literally
enemy to strike
made a
him
whole
down.
build
The opponent
for
would have
just-
to overextend themselves to get
It's
at him
pretty
in
much
any
just
way,
crit
giving
chance and crit
Vandar an
damage.
opening with his floating
Of course,
weapons to
that's
strike
generally how
him
you
down.
play.
Not to mention, Vandar was
And
extremely long-lived, just like Yoda. He had multiple
Yeah, it
lifespans
melts
to
everything.
perfect kinetic combat to the point where it was likely a second nature to him, as fighting with his
And
hands
my
would.
stats aren't
All
even
in
fully
all,
maxed yet.
kinetic combat is one of those techniques
For my
that many
build.
believe to be overpowered.
Like,
but may
it's-
not know the intricacies
it ain't
that would
bad,
make it completely ineffectual in the hands of an inexperienced
but it ain't
wielder.
great either.
Anytime a lightsaber
Right.
leaves the hand of a Jedi, it
So,
usually
like,
means they are performing
when I
a
get all
saber
my
flip. In this
my
way,
build
they can
actually,
use
like,
simple
all my
nudges with
core stats and my
telekinesis to
absolute
keep the
stats
lightsaber
max.
spinning
Mhm.
and then
Oh,
return
that's
it
gonna
to
be
your hand. But even doing
dead.
this is met with warning from Blade Masters, as it leaves one without their weapon for a
What I
split
need to work
second.
on is
But
building up
anyway,
my fucking
Mufras,
armor.
the only Jedi Master, or
So I have
Force
more
wielder for that
accountability.
matter, to wield a brown lightsaber in all of the lore. Greetings again, Acolytes, and welcome back to the
What did I tell
Archives.
you?
The subject of kyber crystals and the varying types of lightsaber colors is one that's revisited frequently by many scholars of a galaxy far, far away. Anytime we come across a strange color, we just can't help but analyze its possible meanings and significance. Well, today, we bring you a rather
No, I
bizarre
already
one.
told you.
During the ancient
No.
days of the Jedi Order, there was a master of a rare species by the name of Od Benar, and in his time, he wielded the only known brown lightsaber that we are aware of in the entirety of the lore. Master Benar was a member
Didn't
of
work
the
on
Neti, a long-lived race that evolved from trees. They were, in
don't
essence,
either.
living plant people, which were often force-sensitive and high in tune with the light side. Those of you familiar with the channel will recognize this as being the species of Master Trey Sa, the female Neti, which trained Mace Windu. But Master Benar was a very interesting and unique Jedi indeed, and his particular studies as a master may reveal why he had a brown kyber crystal. But before we begin, we have had a premonition in the Force. Many individuals that have used our archives have not yet subscribed to our order, so if you've been enjoying the daily Star Wars Holocron uploads, reach out and crush that subscribe button. It is your destiny. We have foreseen it. But back to Master Benar and his brown crystal. Due to the extremely long life of a Neti, it is difficult to say exactly when Master Benar was born, but he was originally from the planet of Reich, but was stranded on his people's native world of Merkur,
where he would grow into young adulthood. At some point, he was eventually found by the Jedi Order and brought in for training, discovering his high force sensitivity. By 5000 BBY, Ud Benar had become a Jedi Knight, where he observed the events of the Great Hyperspace War. We say observed because he was one of those who didn't participate. However, he did find a passion which would shape his studies as a Jedi. This would be the study of the Sith and the dark side. Master Benar became a scholar and would eventually become the understudy of Master Odan another long-lived Jedi who fought during the war against Naga Sadow. Master Benar worked with Odan in the archives, gathering and studying the history and all knowledge pertaining to the Sith Order. Interestingly, Ud Benar never felt any sort of pull to the dark side in any form from his studies. Oftentimes in lore, our stories begin with a Jedi with a fascination in the dark side, with them eventually turning to it and embracing it fully. But Master Od Benar never felt anything from his studies, making him one of the most unique Jedi scholars in all of history. As a Neti, he possessed an incredibly rare ability which allowed him to completely sever himself from the subject matter that he was studying. By approaching the Sith lore from a place of complete disconnection, he was quite literally deaf to the dark side, while still being able to comprehend and understand it. As a result of these groundbreaking studies, Ud Banar became a revered Jedi within the Order, and soon he would be the go-to source for any Jedi that required information about the dark side. While nothing of a fighter himself, and a self-proclaimed poor military tactician, Ud Banar was always eager to share his knowledge with other Jedi so that he could be useful in the fight against the dark side and its affiliates in some degree. During this time in galactic history, knowledge of the dark side and the Sith was extremely rare. The only run-ins the Jedi had with such things was back during the Second Great Schism, and a few times the Sith Order had returned since then, including Naga Sadow's invasion. So they encountered dark acolytes, or when the Jedi had to go take care of Farid and Nad, they would heavily rely on Ud Banar's knowledge in order to prepare. Along with his studies into Sith lore, Ud Banar was also very familiar with Kyber crystal science. He was one of the masters in charge of the study along with Odan In fact, rare crystals weren't something that was strange to Ud Banar. Apparently he had once gifted his apprentice, Shaylay Nur, a Solari crystal, one that could be used in her own lightsaber. At the time, the Solari crystal was the rarest and the most powerful Jedi Kyber crystal that had ever been discovered, producing a light orange blade. The Solari crystal could only be used by a Jedi who was pure in spirit, an adherent follower of the light side only. It could not be corrupted by the dark side, and its owner had to always stay pure of heart in order for the lightsaber to function. By the very fact that Ud Banar once possessed this crystal in his own saber proves that there was no trace of the dark side within him despite all of his studies into the Sith culture. I think this perfectly brings us around to the crystal known as Banar's Sacrifice, which is the brown Kyber crystal that got our attention in the first place in the lore. Ud very rarely ever used a lightsaber, and for a long time after he gave his Solari crystal away, he didn't even own a lightsaber. But it seems while he never actually used this brown crystal in his own lightsaber, he still had a great love for the crystals, and so he possessed and had imprinted upon it, even though he would never place his crystal in a lightsaber. And fascinatingly, the crystal turned brown. Banar's Sacrifice, like the Solari crystal, could only ever be used by those who were pure of heart and adamant followers of the light. But this Kyber had one other unique property to it. Whoever uses this crystal in their lightsaber would be bonded to it forever, and the crystal could be used by no other. Ud Banar would leave this crystal behind as his legacy to any who could come after him, which means that he never used it within his own lightsaber, but wanted someone else to use it in his place for the sake of the Jedi. The meaning of the brown crystal is a curious one, but it's one that we may be able to decipher by studying Master Banar himself. The hand that wields Banar's Sacrifice must be one who is pure-hearted and rooted in the light, but they must have a willingness to understand the nature of the dark side without being tempted to use it, or even come close to corruption. It would require a kind of iron will which only comes around every couple thousand years. Only the most special of Jedi could properly use this brown crystal. But on the subject of the crystal's name, it is a tragic one which is appropriately tied to Master Banar's ultimate fate. Ud would live until 3996 BBY, being an instrumental help during the Great Sith War against one Exar Kun. Master Banar provided much required knowledge and advice during the battle with the dark side, and the Jedi were lucky to have him around as the dark side returned to the galaxy in grand fashion. But despite his best efforts, Ulic Qel-Droma still would eventually turn to the dark side, and Banar's best friend, Odan would eventually be killed directly by Exar Kun. Ud would succeed as the Master of the Archives for a short while, until the Battle of Ossus. After the 10-sun Kron cluster would be destabilized by Exar, he invaded Ossus to quickly gather as many Jedi and Sith artifacts from the library as possible, plundering the Jedi's home before the supernova shockwave destroyed the surface of the Jedi's homeworld. Master Banar was helping everyone get the Jedi knowledge evacuated from the planet when Exar would make his appearance in the archives. Ud was no fool, and knew very well the limits of his own power and skill, and he had no chance against the mighty Sith Lord one-on-one. But he could not, and would not allow the Sith to get his hands on the collection of sacred Jedi lightsabers which resided in the archives, a fascination of Exar's. Ud Banar would fend off Exar for a short while, doing his best just to dodge the Sith Lord's savage blows.
Unfortunately though, Udbenar's basic knowledge of lightsaber combat could not stand up to the expertise of Exar Kun, and he was disarmed. However, Benar held still and held all of the cards as he would activate his species' special trait, a trap he had laid perfectly. Growing over the lightsabers, he became a near indestructible tree, depriving Exar Kun of the sacred lightsaber collection that he so desired. Exar would be forced to flee, knowing that attempting to retrieve the lightsabers would be a waste of time. Master Benar's old friend, Master Thawne, would communicate with him before the full evacuation, and the two Jedi Masters would share a solemn goodbye before Thawne eventually evacuated Ossus himself. The shockwave swept over the surface of the world and destroyed everything. However, Udbenar's tree actually withstood the explosion, and he slipped into hibernation over the lightsabers for thousands of years. The crystal, Benar's sacrifice, was the only legacy that he left behind for one who may claim it years later. During his long slumber, those who were left on Ossus during the devastation began to hide underground, and once it was all over, they all had children, and their descendants would become the Yasana tribe. The Yasana people all grew up knowing the tale of Master Benar and his tree, as this became a sacred location to them, naming it the Place of Ascension. And it was here where Udbenar would rest until he was found by Luke Skywalker in 10 ABY. Luke, who was helping the Yasana people against a Dark Jedi. Despite having awoken from a several thousand-year-long slumber, Udbenar wasted no time and immediately helped Luke. Drawing upon the energies from the planet of Ossus through his very roots, Benar would counteract a destructive ritual that the Dark Jedi had attempted, officially sacrificing his life in the process and becoming one with the Force in its finality. This would be the end of Benar's help. However, long ago, at the behest of Odan and Master Thawne, Udbenar would create a holocron of his own, sharing all of the knowledge of the Sith, the dark side, and his knowledge of kyber crystals. This holocron would survive to the time of Luke Skywalker's Jedi Order, where its knowledge became invaluable to the future of the Jedi. However, it isn't exactly said who found and used the brown kyber crystal known as Benar's sacrifice. So as far as we know, the brown lightsaber has yet to receive its forever master. So my friends, what do you think of the tale of Master Udbenar? These kind of Jedi are extremely important and rare to the overall growth of the Jedi Order, and I think perhaps more Jedi should invest time in learning the ability to completely disassociate from all subject matter that they research, and can learn a healthy amount about the Sith in the process. But let us ask you this: was there an ancient Grandmaster stronger than Yoda, and that maybe could have competed with even Luke? Greetings, Acolytes, and welcome back to the Archives. In Star Wars lore, one thing is made very clear. Ancient Force wielders always seem to have a leg up in their competition for the most powerful users, whether they be Jedi or Sith. The secrets they knew were often lost to history, making the subsequent Jedi and Sith orders weaker as a result of this lost information. Over time, we look back at some of the Force wielders which existed thousands of years ago in the lore, and speak of how amazingly powerful they were, while comparing them with who we consider to be today's strongest in the galaxy. But there is one debate that we here at the Archives are not quite sure about yet, and that is the Grandmaster Nomi Sunrider and how she would compare to Grandmaster Yoda. Nomi Sunrider was an ancient Jedi who became Grandmaster of the Order following the death of Exar Kun, but the feat she pulled off during her time as a Jedi has led many to believe that she is even stronger than Yoda is. Well, as you know, we couldn't possibly pass up this discussion, so it was time for our researchers to open up some scrolls and meditate on the truth. So today, join us as we open up a holocron and determine if Nomi Sunrider was truly more powerful than Yoda, making her the most powerful Jedi Grandmaster before Luke. First of all, there may be some of you who are unfamiliar with Nomi, or just may need a refresher, so let's do a quick recap of who she is. Nomi Sunrider was the wife of a Jedi Knight back in the days of the old Sith Wars. This was around the year 4000 BBY, when Jedi were spread out more and more around the galaxy and were allowed to fall in love and have children. On one occasion, Nomi and her husband were at an airport to deliver a bag of kyber crystals to the Jedi Temple on Ossus. However, they were attacked by thugs who wanted the kyber for themselves, and her husband died while protecting his family. In a rage, Nomi picked up his lightsaber and unleashed her devastating potential in the Force, as she slaughtered each and every one of the thugs with her husband's blade.
Afterwards, her husband appeared to her as a ghost, instructing her to seek out the Jedi Master Thrawn on the world of Ambria, and it would be there where she would find her training as a Jedi. Although Nomi was frightened by her power and swore off ever using a lightsaber again, she traveled to Ambria and trained under Jedi Master Thrawn. What would happen over the course of the next little while was her learning to overcome her fears and how to hone her extremely strong connection to the Force and insanely devastating powers. The Jedi Knight Nomi would play a pivotal role in the Great Sith War against Exar Kun, and she would even be the one who led the entire Jedi Order in defeating and trapping the spirit of Exar. In the end, she would become Grand Master of the Order, a position that she retained for the remainder of her life. Although Nomi would get over her fear of using a lightsaber and began to wield one quite frequently after the start of the war, she wasn't as proficient with it as some of the other Jedi. That didn't matter to Nomi though, as she much preferred using the Force in combat against Dark Jedi and Sith. A lot of Nomi's raw power would actually come from her master in Thrawn. Thrawn was a quadrupedal animalistic species known to be something of a hermit, and it was said that he knew many secrets about the light side that even members of the Jedi Council did not know, and his claim to fame would be his powers in Force light. He would actually use this to trap and contain a Sith curse inside of a lake on Ambria, and this will be much important to our story later, as this power was something that he passed on to Nomi, who made it her staple ability. But before we jump into that, let's recount some of Nomi's greatest feats. Nomi obviously has far less feats than someone like Yoda, but they are impactful and a huge testament to her power. What's interesting about Nomi, as just as the dark side inherently calls to some, the light side inherently called to her, and she was on record as being one of the most naturally gifted light side wielders in all of galactic history. So strong that we say that this would be a modern Sith Lord's nightmare, while she was able to use moderate applications of telekinesis, and was able to reflect blaster bolts with Tutaminis. Nomi's real powers lied in the realm of the mind. Nomi was talented in battle meditation, able to rally and meld together the minds of hundreds or even thousands of Jedi, having them all work together in unison. But when directing her battle meditation towards the enemy, she could confuse them and command them to kill one another instead. She was able to concentrate and shatter the Sith spell controlling the group of dark disciples and creatures known as the Hissis, and this wouldn't be the first time that she managed to break dark side influence. There was once a dark sorceress by the name of Alima Keto, who used Sith secrets in battle meditation to conjure massive illusions during space conflict. She used this power to either conceal Exar Kun's fleet or to make it seem much larger than it was, creating monstrous creatures of nightmares to frighten the opposing pilots and make them spin out of control. Alima pulled this off quite often to secure victories for the Sith Lord. However, when she met Nomi Sunrider in battle, Nomi could sense that this was all just a simple illusion, and used her own battle meditation to utterly crush it. But it doesn't end here. Nomi uses the Force to penetrate Alima's mind, using the ability known as Mind Shard. It's described as fingers of bright force of energy entering Alima's mind and tearing apart her very thoughts. But as we stated earlier, Nomi Sunrider's greatest ability was Force Light, or the power of the Wall of Light. This was a powerful Jedi secret that few have been able to master. Its properties are many, and not always straightforward, but three specific Jedi Masters who knew of how to use it to great effect were Jedi Masters Thrawn, Arca Jeth, and Odin Ur. The Wall of Light was the ability to conjure the purest form of the light side of the Force, doing so in a way that countered the dark side without fail 100% of the time. Many Jedi considered this to be the most powerful light side weapon in all of the lore. It could either contain the dark side or destroy it completely. The Jedi Arca Jeth used it to purify an entire planet of Freedinad's power, and to trap his spirit inside of a sarcophagus. Thrawn used it to trap an entire Sith curse inside of a lake, and now Nomi would use it to freeze and trap Ulla Qel-Droma in a stasis of pure light. And later, she would combine her power with all of the other Jedi in the Order in order to form a massive wall of light, and trap Exar Kun's spirit in his temple for eternity. But perhaps her most infamous feat was how she used this ability in a unique way against Ulla Qel-Droma. Ulluk had once been a Jedi that Nomi fell in love with, but after he was poisoned, he turned to the dark side and became Exar Kun's apprentice. Nomi would do everything she could to defend him to the other Jedi, and tried numerous times working with Ulluk's brother Kay to bring him back to the light. However, during the destruction of Ossus, Ulik would kill his brother in a fit of rage. Nomi, watching this all happen, was overcome with emotion and distress. Ulik had a moment of clarity and was left vulnerable as he cradled his brother's dead body in his arms. When this happened, Nomi, in her despair, used a Force light technique inside of Ulik's body, blinding him to his power in the Force. This would render him unable to sense or to use the Force at all. Nomi had done this in a flash of emotion, and even though she regretted doing this, she had no idea how to reverse it, since so few people knew how to use Force light. Nomi was taught how to do this by Master Odin who was now dead thanks to Exar Kun. One thing that should be mentioned though, a very common misconception is that Nomi stripped Ulik of his ability to use the Force, in the same way that Nihilus and Scion had stripped the Force from Kreia. This is not the case though. When Nomi did this, she was simply blocking his ability to use it by blinding him to the Force. And it was revealed thanks to the Redemption comics that Ulik was able to regain his connection to the Force in his last moments of life. And so you have it. These are the powers and feats of Nomi Sunrider, the woman who is alleged to be the strongest Jedi Grandmaster in history. We have absolutely no doubts that she was indeed powerful. Her raw talent in the Force, combined with her training by some of the most venerated Jedi ever, resulted in her becoming the strongest Jedi of that era by far. And the other Jedi would agree. But here's where we return to our original argument. Is she stronger than Yoda? At first glance, many would say that yes, she is. Had she been Grandmaster during the time of the Clone Wars, not only would the wars be over much sooner, but she would have been Sidious's worst nightmare. Her abilities to break Sith curses and override dark-side powers with nothing but her mind and willpower make her absolutely terrifying to any wielder of the dark side, especially the Sith. Not to mention her Wall of Light ability would be sure to send the Night Sisters of Dathomir running. But this doesn't necessarily mean that she is stronger than Yoda. It just means that she knew more than he did, and had access to knowledge that he did not. This is where it gets tricky, but with Jedi knowledge is power. The more you know, the more you can manipulate. In this way, Nomi is stronger than Yoda, but when we are talking about raw power and potential, we haven't seen anything to suggest that Nomi's strength eclipses that of Yoda's. If anything, they may be even with one another, or perhaps Yoda's potential is greater. The difference between them is that Nomi simply knew more ancient Jedi secrets than Yoda could ever learn. She had been trained under both Master Thrawn, a being who is said to know more about the light side than even the might of the combined Jedi Council, and Master Odan the Jedi Archivist of the Great Library, a man who had been around for hundreds of years. Both of these Jedi Masters would give Nomi secrets that they would give to no one else, which is why she became Grand Master. With the destruction of Ossus came a tremendous loss in Jedi knowledge and light side abilities. Abilities that Nomi knew, and Yoda did not. Had this not happened, Yoda absolutely could have mastered these abilities. But to wrap things up, to compare and decide who is more powerful, we would have to look at them in each category, and unfortunately, there just aren't enough feats from Nomi Sunrider. What we said about Nomi being in the Clone Wars was theoretical, as she has allowed her emotions to stop her in the past and become blindsided by them. Nomi has not only lashed out in rage and blocked someone from using the Force, but would make many similar emotionally driven decisions. And we're talking about this even after she was declared the Grand Master. She never recovered from her loss of Ulik or her husband, as she kept personal holo pictures of them around, taking them with her wherever she went. Despite the fact that she is incredibly gifted in the Force, she carries with her a sense of helplessness instead of strength and leadership. In this way, Yoda is the massively superior Grand Master. He may have been blinded by arrogance and dogma, but for the most part, he at least made decisions with wisdom and a clear mind, even on matters that he disagreed with, such as Obi-Wan training Anakin. He would consider all of the angles and rule in the manner that benefited everyone. We've talked before about how Yoda was given a loaded deck in his time. At least Nomi had an enemy that she could see. Yoda did not. But nonetheless, potential to potential, Nomi Sunrider is clearly a rival of the Grand Master. But anyway, my friends, of the Jedi Council are often seen in the background, with Yoda and Windu often being the voices of the Council whenever they come to a decision. It can be easy to forget that there are 10 other powerful Masters that sit in the circle and deliberate with them. Each of these Council members are powerful and notable in their own respective ways, bringing something entirely new to the Council. Although we aren't aware of their skills or prowess individually a lot of the time, we do find out the reasons why these masters sit upon the very apex of the Jedi Order, despite there being 10,000 Jedi Knights to choose from. It is always fascinating to analyze these council members' strength and see what makes them notable. In today's Holocron, we are going to be discussing one of these such background characters that is more important than many give him credit for, Yarael Poof. Distinguished by his long neck and often mistaken as a Kaminoan, Poof is a Quamarian Jedi Master who frequently got forgotten when considering the strongest of the Council. Where some might look to Oberyn Sissis as one of the finest lesser members, many are unfamiliar with the story of Yarael and how he saved the entire planet of Coruscant, as well as the galactic public before the Clone Wars ever broke out. So today, my friends, let's dive into the obscure and discuss the power, the legacy of Master Yarael Poof. But before we dive in, our mystics have sensed a great disturbance in the Force. Many of whom are watching have not yet subscribed, and we would hate for you to be left out of our daily uploads of Star Wars lore. So be sure to reach out and force crush that subscribe button and turn on your notifications so that you too may be enlightened. All jokes aside, my friends, thank you so much for the support, and let's get into this Holocron. In actuality, there is not much to discuss when it comes to the beginning or the personal life of Yarael Poof. Like many other Jedi, it is assumed that he was found as an infant on Crimea and was raised at the Jedi Temple as an initiate, eventually passing the trials and ascending to the rank of Jedi Master. Likely one of the reasons we don't see him in the field much is because he chose the path of a Jedi Consular, opting to explore the deeper mysteries of the Force and resolve conflict by non-violent methods. He was a diplomat and a mystic, often making his appearances during council meetings or political gatherings. He would make his staple as one of the most politically involved Jedi Masters during the canon High Republic era, and was often holding the ear of many powerful chancellors and senators. At the time, this was Chancellor Lina So, and Master Poof, who said to embody what it meant to be true as a Jedi, was patient and wise, as well as being extremely compassionate, one of the greatest Jedi of his time. We might even say that Master Poof was more of a polar opposite to what we would see in Ki-Adi-Mundi, whereas Mundi was very strict to the Jedi Code to a fault, growing to perhaps even be slightly cold-hearted. Master Yarael honored the Jedi Code in its very essence, protecting life and allowing it to grow. On this note, he would often put the safety of innocents over missions given by the Council to him, going out of his way to pause what he was doing if someone needed his help. As far as his personal life in the temple went, Master Poof would train the Jedi Ruor and Korop to knighthood, the Ithorian Jedi who would famously make a brave final stand against Grievous during the Battle of Coruscant. When it came to the Master's strength in the Force, Master Poof gained his notoriety for being extremely talented in the realm of the mind. In fact, it was said that of anyone on the High Council, Master Yarael had the strongest mind, even more powerful than that of Yoda. And this mind power doesn't mean telekinesis, but the ability to influence someone else's mind and affect it. This is essentially the umbrella term for which the classic Jedi mind trick would stem, but Master Yarael had perfected this one ability and taken it to the highest degree possible, being able to manipulate people's minds to project powerful force illusions at very little cost of his own energy. During one excursion, the Master was searching the lower levels of Coruscant on a mission. Eventually, he would come across a young child being chased by a group of teenagers, intending to harm him. The Jedi Master would then cast an illusion of a massive rancor behind the boy, terrifying all of the gang members into turning tail and running away as fast as possible. The Jedi would explain to the boy that those who are fearful lash out at others to make themselves feel safe, and all he did was help make their fears a little more visible. Just to be clear, Master Yarael used an extremely advanced technique to reach into the minds of 5 individuals, casting an illusion that only they could see, and he did so with ease. Master Poof was talented in the gifts of psychometry, as he was able to track down a force-imbued object by following its trail all throughout the underbelly of Coruscant. In fact, he was so powerful that Windu himself was originally going to take on this mission, but it was turned over to Master Yarael for this very reason. While the Jedi Master did prefer to solve things non-violently and through the use of his mind tricks, there comes a time when all Jedi must brandish their lightsaber, and although his lightsaber was seldom used, he was no weakling with the blade.
Wielding a long-handed blue greatsaber, the Jedi Master could deflect blaster fire masterfully from multiple opponents, while also
He definitely looks like a
simultaneously
Kaminoan.
disarming, dismembering, and even beheading assassins. It's more than likely that the Jedi Master was using Form 6 9-Man, as he also mixed in force-based attacks with his saber movements, and preferred more direct and simplistic movements with his saber, which kept his options open, despite his tall and lanky form. Yarel moved with surprising speed, able to cross a gap between himself and a blaster-wielding opponent in a single bound, dismembering the man before his finger could squeeze the trigger. The Jedi Master's feats and death would all unfortunately occur in the Legends comic run Zam Wesell, which takes place many years prior to the events of Attack of the Clones. In the comic, a radicalized Anun Dat general by the name of Ashar Korda had declared a personal war on the Republic and had stolen a Force artifact in order to bring about the Republic's destruction. Having hired Jango Fett to retrieve the artifact, the bounty hunter would learn from Zam that it was a Force-powered idol which contained a stored wealth of Force energy. When released, this power had the potential to cause the same destruction as a massive bomb. Korda planned on planting the idol in one of Coruscant's power cores to overload it, and cause a chain reaction, which would ultimately completely annihilate the capital world, crippling the Republic there. After some coercion, Jango Fett would eventually agree to help save Coruscant. At this time, Master Yarel was given the mission by the Council to hunt down the artifact, and to stop this event from occurring. Jango, Zam, and Master Yarel would all converge at the same point on Coruscant's reactor cores in order to battle the Mad General, as well as his men, to stop the event from occurring. Despite not knowing or really trusting one another, the Jedi Master and the bounty hunters worked together to stop the terrorists, with the event ending by way of the Jedi Master cutting the hand off of Korda with the attack that severed the hand that we mentioned earlier. The Jedi then began to use the Force to pull the idol out of the reactor, but while he was focusing, Korda stabbed him in the stomach with a knife. Jango executed the general with a volley of blaster shots, while Zam saved the overloaded idol from falling into the reactor's abyss. With his final breath, Yarel Poof would use the last of his strength to recontain the energy of the idol, not allowing it to explode, and would eventually pass on through the Force. Jango and Zam would be the only ones to witness the death of this great Jedi Master, and would eventually go to return the idol where it belonged, honoring him. Although the Council would have no idea who helped him, they all acknowledged that he saved trillions of lives that day, as well as the Republic itself with his bravery, and he was given a traditional Jedi funeral. He would be succeeded on the Jedi High Council by the much less accomplished Coleman Trevor by the time of the Clone Wars' very beginning, as he assumed Yarel Poof's seat. And this, my friends, was the how you that in all of Star Wars lore, there is only a single Kaminoan Jedi. One Jedi that lived for nearly 3,000 years and was the only Force-sensitive of her entire species, with this making her a massive threat to the Kaminoan people, as she ultimately chose exile over joining with them. Well, today, we will explain the story of the only Kaminoan Jedi that we know of in Star Wars lore, why she was so unique and powerful, how she lived so long, and why she ultimately resolved to leave her people. The Jedi Master that we will be focusing on today is known as Kin Ha. Your prowess with a lightsaber is childish vanity. Your physical Force powers are no more than a conjurer's trick, sleight of hand to dazzle the ordinary beings you should be serving. You profane these powers by using them as weapons in war, and you fail to grasp the single, simple, uncompromising duty of a true Jedi. The Jedi is the rock lion at the gate who says, "I will defend these beings with my life," and that is the sum of me. Kin Ha was a female Kaminoan Jedi Master trained during the era of peace known only as the Republic Classic era. Born on Kamino, Kin Ha was a Kaminoan who had been genetically altered to survive long hyperspace journeys. These deep space missions were never carried out, and Ha was left without purpose among her highly organized homeworld and people, making her somewhat of an outcast. Matters grew worse as she entered her adulthood. Her Force sensitivity began to manifest itself, drawing the criticism and disdain of her perfectionist peers. With her peers Troopers whispering behind her back that she had no place among them, perceived by them as an outcast, as she not only was Force-sensitive, but also did not act like a typical Kaminoan. She had a sense of morals beyond her people, and was not always focused on being perfect. Not to mention, she also had a sense of humor, something that was incredibly rare for the Kaminoan people, as they believed that because she had been genetically altered to survive so long in hyperspace, that there was something wrong with her, and Kinha had essentially gone rotten. Because of this, Kinha eventually departed her homeworld for fear of being re-educated, losing all of her memories, or potentially even killed by her own people. During her journeys, Ha came under the tutelage of the rogue Jedi known as Krashanuk, who trained her as a Jedi Guardian. Over many years of training, unofficially by the Jedi, Kinha was deemed a Jedi Knight. What made her exceptionally rare is, of course, she was much older than is commonplace to be trained by a Jedi. But because she came across a rogue Jedi Master, and he sensed her latent Force potential, he resolved to train her anyway. With the Kaminoan people rejecting her, her Jedi Master believed that she was a clean slate, and could still be trained as a successful Jedi, with her Jedi Master not wanting the Force potential manifesting in a Kaminoan to go to waste, believing this to be a sign of the Force that she was worthy of training. Eventually, Kinha was officially inducted into the Jedi Order as a Jedi Master, with many on the Council at the time believing that she was a valiant and faithful Jedi, not being as weary as they would be during the Clone Wars era. For nearly 3,000 years, Kinha served faithfully as a Jedi Master of the Order. This is perplexing, as she was far older than even the current Grandmaster and Jedi Grandmaster Yoda. However, Kinha never wanted to take a place on the Jedi Council, believing that she wanted to protect the innocence of the galaxy in a more active role, and began to perceive many of the flaws in the Jedi Order as the Clone Wars era began. She saw that the Jedi were becoming far more dogmatic, and considered herself lucky to be trained in an era where this was not the case. Again,
All right. I think we did good today. Got 2 images done.
essentially represented the last
Been at it for
ancient
over
Jedi
3
who
hours. I
was
need a
left
break.
with a lightsaber, which was
So,
entirely of the gold alloy known as Electric.
I'm tired. Probably pick it up tomorrow. But I will catch you guys on the next one. So, I love you. Thank you for watching. Peace.